Chapter 1410. Oh, in the blink of an eye, there are only 7 people left. After Liu Bang disappeared, the old librarian suddenly shouted in a low voice. Jojo Doma and the others immediately put down the books they were still reading and stared at Gu Han with anger and fear in their eyes. They had never expected that Gu Han would be able to defeat Liu Bang so easily when no one was paying attention to him. Who would Gu Han kill next? Would he send all of them back into the taboo book in a fit of anger? Don't look at me like that. I won't do anything to you. Gu Han smiled. Jojo Doma, Misaka Makoto, and Chidu Isuzu, you are all destined to leave this place. It's useless for me to do anything to you. So don't worry, I won't hurt you. Gu Han's words sounded very reasonable. Jojo Doma and the others gradually let down their guard, but they still stared at Gu Han nervously. If you're not their opponent, then you'll be my opponent. Artoria stared at Gu Han and said coldly, and I haven't found the forbidden book that belongs to me. It seems that you've hidden this book, right? Give me this book. I'll go on my own. I want to go back to my own world. I don't want to see you again. Artoria stretched out a hand and said coldly, Sister Artoria, don't be like this. I think we should be united at this time. There are only 6 of us now, right? When the 7th person comes, we'll all attack together and send the 7th person back. Then we can all leave this place, right? Jojo Doma immediately jumped out to smooth things over. Yes, he's right. We may have had some misunderstandings before, but I believe that Gu Han and Sister Artoria still love each other. Why do 2 people who love each other have to destroy each other like this? Why can't you forgive each other? Do you know how difficult it is for 2 people to be together? Misaka Makoto tried her best to persuade Gu Han. That surprised Gu Han. Wasn't Misaka Makoto against him and Artoria? If it wasn't for her, he wouldn't have ended up in this situation. Why was she speaking up for him? This question didn't exist in Gu Han's mind for long, before Gu Han found the answer himself. That was because Gu Han noticed that Misaka Makoto was holding a novel called Romeo and Juliet in her hand. It seemed like Misaka Makoto was touched by the tragic story of the couple and changed her mind. She felt that it was better to let 2 people who were originally in love hate each other instead of breaking them up. It was better to fulfill their wish and let them continue to love each other. Misaka Makoto's words seemed to have an effect. Artoria's expression was no longer as cold as before. Instead, there was a slight change in her expression. Time was indeed the best antidote. After a long period of calming down, Artoria was no longer as agitated as she was when she first found out about Gu Han and Liu Qingping. Moreover, the 2 of them did not show any signs of intimacy and behaved more like 2 normal friends. Therefore, Artoria felt that she might have wronged Gu Han. At that time, Gu Han might have been forced to do it. His heart wasn't in love with Liu Qingping. His heart was still with her. To put it bluntly, Artoria had already decided to forgive Gu Han. It was just that Artoria still needed a way out of this embarrassing situation. Misaka Makoto's words were the best way out of this awkward situation. As long as things developed according to Misaka Makoto's words, she believed that Gu Han might be able to reconcile with Artoria. It's no use. The 7th person is actually written in that book. Even if the 7th person's name isn't in that book, I'll definitely let her go. Gu Han's next action completely shocked everyone present. Gu Han gently stroked Liu Qingping's belly and said, Actually, Liu Qingping is already pregnant. In her belly is my child, the 7th person. Clang! A row of bookshelves near Artoria suddenly collapsed. Artoria trembled as she looked at Gu Han and Liu Qingping. Finally, she simply turned around and disappeared into a corner of the library. This time, the opportunity to reconcile with Liu Qingping was destroyed just like that. It cannot be helped. After all, the child in Liu Qingping's belly was Gu Han's. As time passed, Liu Qingping's belly gradually began to expand. This also put an end to all the speculations of a fake pregnancy. Liu Qingping was really pregnant, and everyone present understood that the 4th person in the book was actually the child in Liu Qingping's belly. Once the child was born, it would be time for them to leave this place. When that time came, one person was destined to stay, and that person was either Gu Han or Artoria. There were no other possibilities. Gahan would never let the child's mother stay here. After that, the atmosphere became extremely stiff. Not only did Gahan completely stop communicating with Artoria, he even entrusted Lu Qingping to Jojo Dangma and Jojo Doma to take care of her. He maintained a cross-legged posture, quietly sitting in front of a row of bookshelves. He did not even open his eyes for a few consecutive days. No one knew what Gahan was planning with his eyes closed. Of course, if someone could enter Gahan's dimensional pocket at this time, they would definitely find that Gahan's dimensional pocket had become a completely different world. At this time, in the dimensional pocket, everything was squeezed into an extremely small corner. Most of the dimensional pocket space was occupied by a lake. This lake was the lake that Gahan had previously simulated with pure water. However, this lake was more than 10 times larger than before. At this time, in the center of the lake, there was a white island that occupied about 1/5 of the lake surface. If one looked closely, they would find that this island was actually not made of soil, but of white rice that had been mashed into mush. On this small island that was made of white rice, there was also a forest made of various vegetables and a mountain made of huge sugar cubes. There was even a smaller lake inside the island. In fact, at this time, there was also a bright red sun floating in the sky. But if one looked closely, they would find that this sun was actually made of fresh meat. In short, this island had been simulated by Gahan into a real scene. And at this time, the most important moment in this world had happened. On the beach of the island, countless small fish were struggling to get closer to the beach. These small fish were the small fish that Gahan had created by mixing fresh meat with his consciousness fragments. There were 400 million such small fish in the entire lake. That's right, during this period of time, Gahan's consciousness had split twice, and the total number of consciousness fragments had reached 400 million. This was a very shocking number. When these small fish were just born, all the small fish looked the same, but now it was different. These small fish struggling to get to the shore had turned into 5 or 6 different forms, with hundreds of different appearances. Obviously, these small fish had undergone different changes during this period of time, which was why they had formed hundreds of different creatures. At this time, these small fish were struggling to get to the shore, but after 9,999,999% of the small fish left the lake, they began to lay eggs on the shore. And then from the eggs, they gave birth to offspring that looked exactly like themselves. However, whether it was the mother or the child, it was impossible for them to survive in the environment on the shore. Soon, they all died on the shore. The consciousness fragments in their bodies flew into the sun and the sky, and after wrapping up a little bit of the sun's fresh meat, they fell back into the lake, turned back into the shape of the fish, and tried to get to the shore again. This process lasted for a long time. After the 400 million consciousness fragments went through about 100 reincarnations, the situation finally changed. After the 4-legged fish that looked like a crocodile climbed to the shore, it quickly laid eggs like its kind and died. But this time, the crocodile's egg did not die. From the egg hatched a child that looked slightly different from the original crocodile. For the first time, a nose appeared on the face of this small fish. At the same time, the gills of this small fish still existed. This was the first species that could adapt to the environment on land and in shallow water at the same time, which was commonly known as amphibians. Because there were a large number of dead fish corpses on the ground, such species began to rely on eating these corpses to reproduce in large numbers, and eventually became the overlord of the entire beach. But no matter how much food there was on the coast, there would always be a time when it was finished. So some of these amphibians returned to the sea, wanting to find food in the sea. But the other group advanced deeper into the land. As time passed, these amphibians once again began to transform their offspring in order to adapt to the living environment inside the land. These animals did not know that while they were constantly struggling in this small world to survive, a godlike consciousness was silently watching them. Sometimes he was just a simple bystander, silently watching the evolution of these small creatures. Sometimes he intervened, using his own thoughts to control the changes of the entire world's environment. Some unlucky races might be completely wiped out by a tsunami, while some lucky races might find an edible tree, and the entire race's population would start to expand like a balloon. Am I a god? Or am I a human? Are these animals just fragments of my consciousness? Or are they independent lives? The godlike Gahan thought quietly. He felt that if he could completely understand this question, he might be able to obtain power that surpassed Emperor's swords. Although Gahan did not know if he could understand the answer to this question, Gahan knew that he had found the way forward. Chapter 1411. This Gahan really doesn't have a slightest bit of humanity. Even if he really doesn't like this woman, there's no need for him to be so heartless. She's obviously pregnant with his child, but he didn't even look at it from beginning to end. He just sat there and meditated. What a heartless bastard. Misaka Makoto was a kind girl after all. When she found out that Lu Qingping was pregnant and Gahan had no intention of taking care of Lu Qingping, Misaka Makoto took the initiative to take care of Lu Qingping. It was Misaka, Makoto, Dangma Jojo, and Chidu Isuzu who took care of the poor Lu Qingping from her flat belly to her current round belly. Other than providing some food, Gahan did not care about Lu Qingping at all. Don't say that about Gahan-sama. I know that Gahan-sama must have something important to do. It might be something that can save all of humanity. I can't disturb him because of such a small matter. Lu Qingping said with a smile on her face. At the same time, she gently caressed her belly. The love of becoming a mother had filled Lu Qingping's heart. She was now a mother. Seriously, you're still speaking up for him. It's not worth it. Just as Misaka Makoto was about to say something, Lu Qingping's loving expression suddenly changed to one of extreme agony. At the same time, she rubbed her stomach and let out a painful howl. Droplets of water dripped onto the ground at the same time. Oh no, are you going to give birth? Misaka Makoto said in fear when she saw Lu Qingping's reaction. I'm afraid so. He's moving. He wants to come out. Lu Qingping said intermittently. At the same time, it meant that the child in Lu Qingping's belly was about to come out. What should I do? I don't know how to deliver a child. What should I do? Misaka Makoto was so anxious that she scratched her head. She was a virgin and had never given birth before. Faced with such a situation, she had no idea what to do. You do it. Misaka Makoto grabbed Dangma Jojo and was about to throw the blame on him out of habit. I can't. You don't know how to do it, and neither do I. Moreover, I'm a man. Shouldn't I avoid such a situation? Jujo Dangma said as he felt wronged. Misaka Makoto finally realized what was going on. What was the meaning of other men staying here when a girl was giving birth? This was indeed inappropriate. Then can you? Misaka Makoto could only look at Chidu Isuzu for help. Chidu Isuzu was shocked and waved his hands. I can't do it. I can't do it. I only know how to shoot. I don't know how to deliver a baby. Then what should we do? Misaka Makoto was at her wit's end. She shifted her attention to Gahan, who was meditating, and said angrily, This man still has the cheek to sit there. He doesn't even know how to help me. Wasn't he known as the smartest man? Didn't he claim to know everything? Why isn't he coming out to deliver his child at this time? Instead, we're the ones who are anxious here. No, I can't indulge this man anymore. I have to call him over and make him fulfill his responsibility as a father. Misaka Makoto was about to chase Gahan away. However, just as Misaka Makoto took a step forward, the corner of her shirt was grabbed by a weak hand. Don't disturb him. He must be doing something important. Please don't disturb him. Lu Qingping begged Misaka Makoto. Misaka Makoto was helpless against Lu Qingping's pleading. She looked at Lu Qingping's pitiful face and could not do anything to go against her wishes. But the problem now was, other than Gahan, who might be able to come up with a solution, there was really no one else who could help poor Lu Qingping. Hey, why are you guys still standing here like idiots? Take off her clothes first. At the crucial moment, a decisive voice rang in everyone's ears. Ms. Artoria? Misaka Makoto shouted out her name in surprise. She did not expect Artoria to take the initiative to jump out at this time. Misaka Makoto thought that Artoria would remain silent in the face of her love rival. Perhaps Artoria would be happier if the child died. She did not expect Artoria to take the initiative to jump out at this time. Moreover, she began to command them and took on the task of delivering the child. What was even more surprising was that Artoria had mastered the skill of delivering a child. Under Artoria's guidance and comfort, Lu Qingping gradually got on the right track. The baby's head was successfully revealed from the lower part of her body. Suddenly, Lu Qingping, who had returned to normal, let out a painful howl, and a large amount of blood flowed out. The situation seemed to have taken a turn for the worse in an instant. Faced with such a situation, Artoria could only shout, "Hot water! I need hot water! Hurry up and get some hot water!" What hot water? Faced with Artoria's request, Misaka Makoto and the others were quite helpless. This was not a normal world. It was the core of the seamless corridor, the seamless library. Other than books, there was nothing else here. They cannot even find water. Where are they going to get hot water? Hurry up and give me hot water. Otherwise, she's going to bleed to death. Artoria shouted anxiously. However, Misaka Makoto and the others were still at their wits' end. They really could not find any hot water. No one expected that they would be stumped by a basin of hot water at such a critical moment. "Ms. Makoto, can you please release some electricity?" Suddenly, a voice rang in Misaka Makoto's ears. "Go away. This is a critical moment. I'm not in the mood to release electricity," Misaka Makoto said subconsciously. However, she immediately realized what was going on. She turned around angrily and yelled at the person, "You shameless man, you've finally come out. Your woman is about to die, and you can't help her at all. What's the use of you? If you have the ability, get us some hot water. That's why I'm asking you to release electricity." Gohan ignored Misaka Makoto's yelling. Instead, he pointed at the ground. At that time, Misaka Makoto saw that there was a bucket on the ground. The bucket was filled with purified water, and there was a metal rod stuck in it. "You want me to electrify this metal rod?" As expected of Misaka Makoto, who was able to develop the super electromagnetic gun, she could be considered as half an electrical genius. She immediately reacted when she saw the scene in front of her. She immediately grabbed one end of the metal rod and injected all the electricity in her body into the metal rod. The metal rod began to turn red at an alarming rate. If it was not soaked in water, it would not take more than 10 seconds for it to completely melt into a pool of molten iron. With such a huge amount of heat transferred into the water, the temperature of the bucket of purified water began to rise rapidly. When a thick mist appeared, Gohan decisively ordered Misaka Makoto to stop. A bucket of warm water appeared just like that. "For you." Gohan scooped a large bucket of hot water from the bucket and placed it in front of Artoria. "Okay." Artoria only glanced at Gohan indifferently and then ignored him. She began to fully assist Lu Qingping in giving birth. "Keep it up. I'm by your side. I'll help you." At the same time, Gohan stood by Lu Qingping's side for the first time in the past few months. He used a gentle tone to encourage Lu Qingping. Gohan's voice seemed to have given Lu Qingping a great deal of strength. Lu Qingping's will quickly became stronger and her moans grew louder. Finally, a loud cry echoed throughout the entire library. The baby that was conceived in the most mysterious place in the world was finally born. F***CK. What happened? Is there an earthquake here too? To everyone's horror and confusion, the moment the baby was born, the quiet library suddenly began to shake violently. It was as if an earthquake had broken out. Even the bookshelves that were fixed to the ground began to shake violently. All the books on the shelves fell to the ground. The entire library seemed to be collapsing. In the next second, something even more magical happened. The newborn baby's body suddenly emitted waves of blue light. After the light left the baby's body, it slowly expanded and finally formed the silhouette of a tortoise. The silhouette of a tortoise shrouded the entire library. At the same time, with the tortoise's efforts, the normal and increasingly violent shaking of the library gradually stabilized. At that moment, a lotus flower bloomed right above the baby. It was a white lotus flower. The lotus flower was so beautiful that even Artoria was captivated by its beauty and could not help but be mesmerized by it. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the beautiful white lotus gradually sank into the baby's body. When the two merged into one, the entire library finally stopped trembling, as if a huge force had suppressed the entire library. What just happened? Is the world about to be destroyed? When everything calmed down, Misaka Makoto said absent-mindedly. She had no idea what had just happened. I heard that when those who carry the mandate of heaven and can change the world are born, there will always be a phenomenon. Legend has it that when Oda Nobunaga was born, a demon appeared in the sky above the Oda family's castle. When Tokugawa Ieyasu was born, a dragon also entered Tokugawa Ieyasu's mother's body. That's why they say that these people are born to change the fate of the entire world. Jojo Doma said in amazement, I've always thought that these things are fake. I can't believe it's actually true. There's actually such a phenomenon when a big shot is born. Chapter 14:12. Tokugawa Ieyasu is only a meteor-level Yuan-ko. Although Oda Nobunaga is slightly stronger than him, he's only a universe-level Yuan-ko. Both of them are on the same level as you two. If that's the case, there should have been an anomaly when both of you were born. Gohan's annoying voice rang in Misaka Makoto and Jojo Dangma's ears. One insensitive man. Misaka Makoto rolled her eyes at Gohan. At that moment, Artoria was already holding the newborn child in her arms. Misaka Makoto immediately walked over and started teasing the newborn. Wow, it's a girl. What a cute girl. She'll definitely be a beauty like her mother in the future, Misaka Makoto said excitedly. As Misaka Makoto had participated in the entire process of the child's conception and birth, the baby was considered half her child in her heart. Child, let me see. Lu Qingping, who was extremely weak, stretched out her hand and stuttered. Only then did everyone realize that the child's mother had not seen her child. They quickly brought the child to the weak Lu Qingping. Lu Qingping did not care how weak her body was at that moment. She held the child in her arms and pressed her face against the wrinkled little face of the child, unwilling to let go for even a moment. You'd better not waste your energy now. What you need is rest, Artoria said calmly to Lu Qingping. However, she did not forcefully take the child back from Lu Qingping's arms. After all, this was the happiest moment for a mother. Sister Artoria, you're amazing. If it wasn't for you this time, both mother and daughter would have been finished. Thank you for helping them. I think it's some heartless man who would rather sit there and rest at such a critical moment than do what a father should do. Misaka Makoto thanked Artoria and at the same time mocked Gohan. Gohan did not react to it because Gohan had indeed crossed the line. Cough, cough. The 8th. Oh, this is the 7th person has finally appeared. I can also send you off now. After the birth of the child, the librarian, who had been sleeping on the rocking chair, finally woke up from his dream. He looked at everyone and said, Hooray! We can finally leave this damn place. Misaka Makoto cheered. The rest of them smiled happily as well. They had been stuck in the library for 10 months, and it was finally time to leave. Sir Administrator, what should we do now to leave this place? Jojo Dangma immediately asked the old man. Don't worry. Although the 7th person has appeared, the 4th page is still empty. You have to write your name on this page first, then I can send you away. The old man said while stroking his white beard. Isn't the name on the 4th page the name of this cute little guy? Oh right, this child doesn't have a name yet. We can give her a name. Misaka Makoto said excitedly. But what should we name this child? I remember my mother told me that she gave birth to me while listening to classical piano music. That's why I'm called Misaka Makoto. All right, why are you called Jojo Dangma? Misaka Makoto asked Jojo Dangma curiously after repeating the origin of her name. My mother never told me this. Jojo Dangma shrugged helplessly. Maybe she thought that my birth was a huge trouble for her, so she called me Dangma. Of course not. A mother would never think that her child is trouble. Misaka Makoto rolled her eyes at Jojo Dangma and looked at Chidu Isuzu. What about you? Why are you called Chidu Isuzu? Because I'm the 50th generation descendant of the Chidu family. That's why I'm called Isuzu. Chidu Isuzu's answer was straightforward and irrefutable. It was indeed the most exasperating way of naming a child. Misaka Makoto wanted to ask Artoria and Gohan how they got their names, but the two of them ignored her. Misaka Makoto had no choice but to redirect the topic back to the baby. She said to Lu Qingping, "You're the child's mother. Hurry up and give her a name. All right, don't give this opportunity to that heartless man. He doesn't deserve to give this child a name." "How can I do that?" Lu Qingping shook her head and said firmly, "Fathers have always been the ones to name their children. Of course, this name should be given to your father." After saying that, Lu Qingping looked at Gohan expectantly, hoping that Gohan could give his child a nice name. I. Faced with this request, Gohan hesitated for the first time in his life. Of course, he wanted to give his biological child a name, but in Gohan's heart, he could not make up his mind. Should he follow his fate, or should he go against it? If it was before he entered the seamless corridor and before he understood his fate, Gohan would have made the right decision without hesitation. However, the current Gohan had changed. For the first time, he realized that he was so cowardly that he could not even decide on a name. Miss Makoto is right. I don't deserve to give this child a name. It's better for you to do it. Gohan sighed and said to Lu Qingping. No matter how Lu Qingping begged, Gohan refused to budge. Faced with Gohan's unwillingness to give the child a name, Lu Qingping's eyes finally showed a hint of sadness. "Miss Artoria, can I entrust this child's name to you?" To everyone's surprise, Lu Qingping actually gave this opportunity to Artoria. How can I do that? How can I give this child a name? You're the mother of this child," Artoria said in a panic. She never thought that Lu Qingping would throw this matter onto her head. "No, if it wasn't for your help, Miss Artoria, this child and I would have died here. Miss Artoria, you gave this child life. You should be the one to decide its name," Lu Qingping said firmly. Artoria began to hesitate. "If she tried to use this child's name to ease the relationship between us, so that I can use this child as a stepping stone to reconcile with Gohan?" Artoria suddenly had this guess in her heart. Seeing Lu Qingping's pleading eyes, Artoria gradually began to believe in this guess. Thinking that this might be an important stepping stone to reconcile with Gohan, Artoria hesitated for a long time before finally nodding and agreeing to Lu Qingping's request. "Okay, I'll give this child a name," Artoria said after thinking for a while. "When this child was born, it saw the light of a turtle. I heard that in the East, the turtle represents the mythical beast, the black tortoise. So, this child shall be named Gu Black Tortoise." Gu Black Tortoise? That's a good name. It sounds very interesting. Jojo Dangma immediately praised the name. "That's not a good idea. Gu Black Tortoise sounds like a man's name. Why don't we call it Gu Vermilion Bird or Gu White Lotus? We saw a white lotus flower just now," Misaka Makoto suggested. Artoria's expression began to waver. She felt that Gu Black Tortoise was not a suitable name for a girl. "No, let's call it Gu Black Tortoise. This child shall be named Gu Black Tortoise." Lu Qingping was afraid that Artoria would hesitate and immediately decided on the child's name. Faced with Lu Qingping's decision, Misaka Makoto did not say much. She could only smile and say that Gu Black Tortoise was indeed a good name. "Have you guys decided? Once you've made up your mind, you can't change the name." The old man confirmed with everyone after receiving Lu Qingping's reply. "I've decided. That's the name." Lu Qingping nodded vigorously. "Have you really made up your mind? Have you decided to use this name?" The old man asked again patiently. At this time, everyone realized that the old man was not asking the child's mother, but the child's father, Gohan, who was standing quietly at the side. "I've decided. This is a good name." Gohan's voice suddenly became hoarse. This is fate. You'd better not regret your decision today." The old man said something that everyone could not understand. However, Gohan obviously understood it. He nodded at the old man and said, "I won't regret it. I've never regretted this decision." If that's the case, then you're more qualified to save this world than the child in the fleeting calendar," The old man nodded in satisfaction. At the same time, the name Gu Black Tortoise naturally appeared on the 4th page of the booklet. Although the 7th person's name has been confirmed, there's still a problem. Only 6 people can leave this place. You'll have to eliminate one more person, the old man said to everyone while stroking his beard. It was obvious that Artoria wanted to give up the most important position. However, before Artoria could finish her sentence, her mouth was forcefully covered by Gahan. I'll do it, Gahan said firmly. Finally, you're acting like a man and a father. A faint smile appeared on Misaka Mikoto's face when she saw Guhan taking the initiative to shoulder the responsibility. Her hatred toward this man had almost disappeared the moment Guhan took the initiative to step forward. Chapter 14:13. Sir, you can't do this, humans still need you. After hearing Gahan's decision, the extremely weak Lu Qingping struggled to get up from the ground. However, Gahan pressed her down and said, You know my personality, I always mean what I say. When Gahan said the first word, Lu Qingping knew that she could not persuade him anymore. In the end, she could only lower her head helplessly and said nothing more. The entire place suddenly became quiet. It seems like you've made up your mind. The librarian's turbid eyes swept over everyone, then said, Let me explain this to you first. After you leave the Seamless Corridor, all of your memories of the Seamless Corridor will be erased, and everything that happened in the Seamless Corridor will be erased as well. All you know is that you spent a long period of time in a mysterious place. But as for what this mysterious place is, and as for what happened in there, you won't be able to remember anything at all. In other words, you've lost this period of time forever. Have you thought it through? Do you want to leave this place? Yes, of course, Misaka Mikoto said without hesitation. It's just a memory of this place. It's no big deal. If it's gone, then it's gone. May I ask, sir, what's the time after we leave? When will we appear in the real world? Could it be after Mr. Gahan entered this place? Dang Maju asked curiously. No, the amount of time you've spent here is the same amount of time you've spent in the real world. Therefore, you'll probably appear at different times in the real world. The old man replied calmly. So that's how it is. Then everything fits. After hearing the old man's words, Gahan thought silently in his heart. Dang Maju and Misaka Mikoto had stayed in the Seamless Corridor for about 500 years. Therefore, they should appear around 500 years after the apocalypse. This coincided with the appearance of Misaka Mikoto, whom humans had regained control of. Similarly, Jojo Dangma had appeared at this time as well. Hence, the old man was not lying. Once Misaka Mikoto and Jojo Dangma left, it would be a story from 500 years ago to Guhan. Sir, I have another question. Lu Qingping, who was sitting on the ground, suddenly asked the old man, My child was born here and has never appeared in reality. If she leaves here, when will she appear? Well, the old man was also stumped by Lu Qingping's question. After hesitating for a while, he said uncertainly, She'll probably leave with the person who brought her. Because she's not bound by real time, she can appear at any point in the real world. That should be the case. Thank you, my lord. I understand now. Lu Qingping nodded happily. To the Gu Xuanwu, this was undoubtedly the best outcome. To be able to be with the person who was hugging her. All right, the matter has been settled. You should also leave. The old man urged impatiently. Wait, I still have something to do. Misaka Mikoto shouted out of the blue. She then said to everyone, We've been together for more than 100 years. It's such a waste to be separated and lose each other's memories. When I return to the real world, I still want to be friends with everyone. That's why everyone should leave a mark so that when we return to the real world, we can still find each other. That's why I suggest that everyone write a letter to themselves. In the letter, write down in detail what happened in the Seamless Corridor. That way, we can still be friends after we leave. Misaka Mikoto said. That's a good idea. I don't want to forget everyone. Chidu Isuzu immediately agreed. Lu Qingping's eyes lit up when she heard that. She nodded vigorously in agreement. But what should we do if we don't have pen and paper? Jojo Doma suddenly raised a very practical question. That's easy. Just ask him. I think his dimensional pocket is like a treasure chest. He has everything. I'm sure he'll have pen and paper. Misaka Makoto clapped her hands and said happily. Misaka Makoto's guess was right. Gahan did have pen and paper with him. Bullsh asterisk T. Unexpectedly, the old man immediately rejected Misaka Makoto's suggestion. You can only leave this place with the things that belong to you. Anything that you didn't bring with you can't leave with you. You should just forget about writing letters. The old man's words were very clear. Only things that he brought in could be brought out. In other words, the pen and paper that Gahan brought in could only leave with Gahan. It would never be able to leave with Misaka Makoto and the others. What should we do then? Misaka Makoto was dumbfounded when she heard the old man's words. The old man urged her again. Just when Misaka Makoto was about to give up on the idea, Lu Qingping suddenly said with difficulty, "If we can only bring our own belongings away, can we bring the words with us if we write something on our skin with our own blood?" That's right. That's a good idea. Of course, we can bring our skin and our blood with us. Misaka Makoto clapped her hands happily. At the same time, she did not forget to mock Gahan. Qingping, I didn't expect you to be so smart. I always thought you were stupid. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been fooled by this be asterisk starred. Hence, Misaka Makoto immediately bit her finger to see if she could write on her skin. If they used their fingers as the tip of a pen, the words written would undoubtedly be very big. Even their entire arm could not write more than a few words. On the other hand, the old man kept urging them to hurry up. He even said that if they did not leave in 5 minutes, he would ask them to stay here forever. Hence, they could only write a few words on their hands as fast as they could. Misaka Makoto wrote on her hand, Artoria Chidu Isuzu, Miss Lu Qingping, be asterisk star Gahan, little sister Gu Xuanwu. We will always be friends. We will never forget the days we spent in the seamless corridor. It was really hard on Misaka Makoto. In order to write so many words, her entire body was covered in blood. On the other hand, Jojo Dangma did not have his own thoughts at all. Instead, he wrote the exact same words as Misaka Makoto. That was the behavior of a new good man. Chidu Isuzu's words were relatively simpler. Friend, Makoto Dangma. Father, Gahan. Mother, Lu Qingping, King. Artoria, Child, Gu Xuanwu. It was a simple and clear description of the relationships between the people in the seamless corridor. Lu Qingping also bit her finger and began to write on Gu Xuanwu's back. However, Lu Qingping did not write on her own body. It seemed that Lu Qingping felt that as long as she had the words on Gu Xuanwu's back, she would be able to understand what happened there. Artoria and Guhan had to maintain their cool throughout the entire process. They did not join the group of people who wrote words in blood on their bodies. Please hurry up. This old man's patience is very strong. The old man finally could not take it anymore. He flipped open the book and revealed Misaka Makoto's name on the first page. At the same time, he read, Misaka Makoto. Here, Misaka Makoto replied subconsciously. In the next second, Misaka Makoto's body turned into a puff of green smoke and was sucked into the book. She disappeared without a trace. Makoto, where did you go? Jojo Dangma was shocked. He rushed toward the old man and asked loudly, Don't worry, young man. You're next. The old man smiled and then flipped to the second page of the book. He revealed Jojo Dangma's name and asked the same question as he did to Misaka Makoto. Jojo Dangma was a little afraid and did not dare to speak. What's wrong? Don't you want to see your little girlfriend? The old man rolled his eyes at Jojo Dangma. I'm only going to ask you one more time. If you don't answer me, I'll take it that you're giving up this opportunity. Don't. Jojo Dangma quickly said. The old man then called out Jojo Dangma's name again. This time, Jojo Dangma answered very quickly. Just like Misaka Makoto, he turned into green smoke and disappeared into the book. Send to 59 bells. The old man was the third to call out Send to 59 bells. Based on the previous two people's experience, Send to 59 bells responded obediently and disappeared as well. Fortify black tortoise. Fortify black tortoise. Fortify black tortoise. The old man then began to call out Goo Black Tortoise's name. The problem was that Goo Black Tortoise was still a child. Moreover, she was in a deep sleep and did not even know how to cry. It was impossible for her to know that someone was calling her name and respond to the old man's words. I said, if you hear me calling this child's name, just pinch this child's but hard and make her cry. Feeling helpless, the old man could only make such a request to Lu Qingping. Okay, Lu Qingping nodded. The old man called out Goo Black Tortoise's name again. This time, Goo Black Tortoise still did not respond. What are you doing? Are you making fun of me? The old man looked at Lu Qingping with dissatisfaction. No, it's just that my hands are weak. I used up all my strength when I was writing just now. Now, I don't even have the strength to pinch her. Lu Qingping said weakly. Then, she handed the child in her hands to Artoria and pleaded, Miss Artoria, can you please help me pinch the child so that she can leave here? Why me? Artoria looked at Lu Qingping doubtfully, then looked at Gahan. Shouldn't you give it to your man? No, I'm worried about giving it to him. He's not qualified to be a father. Lu Qingping said with a bitter smile. Hee, indeed, he's not qualified to be a father. Artoria sneered. Then, she bent down and took the child from Lu Qingping's hands. At the same time, she bit Lu Qingping's ear and said, Don't worry, I won't let your family of 3 be separated. I'm going back to my own world. Really? Thank you then. Lu Qingping revealed a happy smile. Seeing this smile, Artoria suddenly felt a little sad in her heart. She sacrificed herself to help them. Wasn't it too easy for them? Goo Black Tortoise. At this time, Laozi called out Goo Black Tortoise's name again. Artoria subconsciously pinched Goo Black Tortoise's back. Goo Black Tortoise felt the pain and immediately began to cry. A large cloud of green smoke instantly filled the entire library. When the green smoke disappeared, Goo Black Tortoise and Artoria disappeared together. At this time, the little book had turned 2 pages in one go. Only the last page was left. Chapter 14:14. Perhaps following her is the right thing to do. Lu Qingping mumbled to herself as she looked at the spot where Artoria and the Goo Black Tortoise disappeared. 2 streams of hot tears rolled down her cheeks. Why did you do this? Why did you let her take care of your child? Gahan looked at Lu Qingping, who was crying nonstop, and asked in a daze, Do you think I can hide my thoughts from you? Didn't you see through my thoughts from the start? Why didn't you stop me then? Lu Qingping did not answer Gahan's question directly. Instead, she asked Gahan out of the blue. Gahan did not know how to answer that question because Gahan had seen through Lu Qingping's scheme in the first place. Previously, Lu Qingping had asked the old man and found out that the child would leave with the person who was carrying it. Conversely, the person who was carrying the child would also leave with the child. Therefore, the Goo Black Tortoise would not leave alone like Misaka Mikoto and the others. Instead, it would leave with the person who was carrying it. Lu Qingping had used that to trick Artoria. She pretended that she did not have the strength to pinch her child so that Artoria would leave with the child. Gahan had seen through that. As long as Gahan was willing to stop it, he would definitely be able to stop it from happening. However, in the end, Gahan did not say a word and allowed Artoria and the Goo Black Tortoise to disappear in front of him. The reason was simple. It was all for the sake of fate. Farewell. Humans need you. Master Sword Immortal Hong Jun. This is the reason why I wanted to give the child to Miss Artoria. Lu Qingping's face suddenly turned red. In the next second, Lu Qingping's breath started to weaken rapidly and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. From a medical perspective, she was dead. Since you gave birth to the black tortoise for me, how can I let you die in front of me? Gahan sighed and touched Lu Qingping's corpse with his right hand. Lu Qingping's corpse disappeared in front of Gahan. Not good. Just a few seconds later, Gahan's face suddenly changed, revealing an unprecedented expression of panic and horror. After another 10 seconds, the space in front of Gahan shook, and Lu Qingping's body reappeared on the ground. Master! Master! Gahan, an unnamed disciple of Ren School, begged his master to save him. Disciple pleads for master to save me. Gohan suddenly took a few small steps towards the old man. Then he knelt down in front of the old man and shouted loudly, "Who are you? Why are you calling me master? I don't remember having a disciple like you." The old man said slowly, "Master, have you forgotten that you left behind the 6 revolutions immortal pill back then? At the same time, you said that if anyone could consume the 6 revolutions immortal pill and not die, that person would be an unnamed disciple of Rin School. I have already consumed the 6 revolutions immortal pill, and I have appeared in front of you today. Isn't I your unnamed disciple?" Gohan said sincerely, "Really? That was just a joke that I said that day. Why did you take it seriously?" The old man said awkwardly, "A gentleman's words are hard to take back. The words of the emperor are even more important. Could it be that the master of Rin School, the descendant of Pangu, the leader of the 3 pure ones, and the ancestor of all immortals, Taishang Laojun, will also go back on his words?" Gohan shouted, and, at the same time, he simply pointed out the identity of the old man. This old man was none other than Taishang Laojun, one of the 3 pure ones, and was indeed Gohan's master. This master-disciple relationship had been decided 100 years ago. "Sigh, silly, since you have recognized my identity today, it means that you and I are fated. All right, I will accept you as my disciple today." The decadent old man's appearance was swept away, and his entire temperament changed in an instant. In an instant, he became the supreme being who sat above the 9 heavens, Taishang Laojun. "Sai, what is love in the world? It is only a promise of life and death." Unexpectedly, Taishang Laojun, who was Taishang Laojun, could also recite such an emotional poem. This is a pitiful child. She didn't want you to stay here. And, at the same time, she decided to sacrifice herself in order to save you and that woman. I, Lier, have not seen such a naive and stupid child for many years. Even Cheng-Ying back then, compared to her, she sacrificed too much and did not have enough true love. Since you are already clear about my wife's thoughts, then you know that I can't let such a woman who loves me so deeply die because of me, no matter what. I beg you, master, to save my wife. From now on, I am willing to do anything for you, master." Gohan kowtowed a few more times. "What a joke. Since you have recognized me as your master, then it is the law of the world for me to order you around. Even if I save your wife, what are you going to do?" Taishang Laojun asked coldly. "I don't know." Gohan continued kowtowing. This was probably the most he had kowtowed in his entire life. "Sigh, how pitiful." Taishang Laojun sighed, and the expression on his face softened a lot. "Didn't you already help your wife return to life once? Since you were able to resurrect her body that day, why can't you do it again today?" "Master, you may not know, but Disciple thought the same before, so Disciple didn't stop my wife's actions. But Disciple didn't expect that Disciple's wife would break away from me like this, and use the sword essence to guide my own soul. All of the original soul that belonged to Disciple's wife has already dissipated, and Disciple is useless, unable to find even a bit of my wife's true spirit. So Disciple sincerely asks Master to help. Master. In this world, only Master can help Disciple." Gohan's eyes became extremely moist. Ever since that day when he cried for his parents, Gohan had never shed a tear again. Only today did he finally shed a tear for Lu Qingping. "Fine, Master will help you once today." Taishang Laojun didn't waste any more words. He pulled his hands in front of him, and a crack appeared in the space of the library. Through this crack, Gohan could clearly see a river flowing inside the crack. This is the River of Destiny. Whether it's humans, Yuan Ko, or even the Sword Lady, they're all just one of the things in the River of Destiny. However, only saints like me who have transcended the world can open this river. Taishang Laojun took the initiative to explain the origin of this river to Gohan. After listening to Taishang Laojun's explanation, this River of Destiny was truly terrifying. Come, give me your hand." Taishang Laojun waved his hand to Gohan, and Guhan immediately raised his hand in front of Taishang Laojun. Taishang Laojun lightly caressed Guhan's hand, and the jade ring that was originally on Guhan's finger instantly fell into Taishang Laojun's hand. Go! Taishang Laojun flicked his horsetail whisk, and the jade ring flew into the river of destiny, creating a splash. One of the water droplets just happened to splash into the crack and flew out of the crack. Taishang Laojun pointed at it in the air. This is a trace of this child's soul. You should know how to resurrect her. Taishang Laojun pointed at the water droplet and said. Guhan nodded forcefully, and the water droplet flew into Lu Qingping's mind. Guhan also immediately put Lu Qingping's corpse into his dimensional pocket. Just like before, he poured a large amount of his consciousness into Lu Qingping's mind to strengthen the trace of Lu Qingping's soul. Finally, it completely recovered to the level of a normal soul. Last time, this process lasted for a whole month before Guhan resurrected Lu Qingping. But this time, Guhan, who was already familiar with controlling the consciousness fragments, operated with incomparable speed and familiarity. In less than an hour, Lu Qingping's soul once again merged with her body, and her consciousness also awakened in Guhan's dimensional pocket. Big brother Guhan, Qing misses you so much. But what Guhan did not expect was that after Lu Qingping resurrected, she actually called Guhan Big Brother. Whether it was temperament or tone, it was completely different from before. If Lu Qingping was a pitiful woman who silently liked Guhan before, then she was now just a cute little sister of Guhan. What's going on? Guhan's heart moved, and Lu Qingping came out of the dimensional pocket. Then, she climbed up from the ground with a bit of mischievousness in her gaze and looked around in fear for a long time. After seeing Guhan, her face finally revealed a happy smile and a huge sense of security. Big brother Guhan. You're Big brother Guhan, right? 2303 finally met you. Grandpa said that even if I met Big Brother, I wouldn't be able to recognize you. But Grandpa didn't know that from the first day I met Big Brother, 2303 has never forgotten about Big Brother. Lu Qingping was like a child as she intimately threw herself into Guhan's arms, wanting to ride on Guhan's neck. But for a young girl's body, this kind of action was a bit too unrealistic, so Lu Qingping accidentally fell. Strange, how did 2303's body become so big? So strange. 2303 only then discovered that her body seemed to have become a bit too mature, especially the pair of rabbits in front of her chest. 2303 began to play with her cute little rabbits. 2303. This number couldn't help but evoke a gradually fading memory in Guhan. It was more than 10 years ago, when he was in Guanghui Amusement Park, that little loli curled up in fear in a rubbish bin. This little loli didn't have a name, or rather, her name was just a pitiful number, 2303. Could it be that Lu Qingping is actually that little loli from back then, that 2303? Under 2303's frightened gaze, Guhan abruptly stood up from the ground, looking at this young girl whose eyes were still as pure as a loli's. Guhan then recalled the words that the inheritor of Guanghui City had silently recited when she hugged 2303. Rippling Storm Qingping, from now on, you're called Yi Qingping. Ha ha, good name, good name. Yi Qingping, Lu Qingping, can directly find the hidden Guanghui City and find the entrance to the seamless corridor. Guhan retreated a few steps in fear. Lu Qingping was Yi Qingping. Fate was indeed the most troublesome thing in the world. Chapter 1415. Big Brother Guhan. How did I become like this? Did I change into a different body? Lu Qingping, or rather, Yi Qingping, was crying in Guhan's arms. Guhan helplessly stroked her back to soothe her emotions while looking at old Lord Taishang with a sad expression. Ahem, I didn't want this to happen either. Old Lord Taishang coughed. Aside from Master, no one has been able to freely extract a true soul from the river of destiny. Master being able to help you find a trace of this child's true soul is already the limit of what Master can do. As for when this true soul came from, Master has no way of knowing. That's why the current I Ching is the I Ching I just left Guangguang Amusement Park a few years ago. She's not the I Ching from before. Gohan looked at I Ching, who was still struggling with her body, and sighed. Big brother Gohan, where did the eighth poor and the others go? Let them out for me to play with. I haven't seen them for a long time. Just as Gohan was thinking about I Ching suddenly hugged Gohan's neck and said to Gohan in a coquettish tone, "The eighth poor and the others are now with Chingpin. They're all in the scabbard of Chingpin's sword. Unless I can release Chingpin, the eighth poor and the others won't be able to come out. You won't be able to see the eighth poor and the others." Gohan could only helplessly explain to the innocent I Ching. However, after explaining, Gohan was stunned. Whether it was 2303 or Lu Chingping, he had never exposed the existence of the eighth poor in front of him. How did I Chingping know about the existence of the eighth poor? Chingping, how do you know about the eighth poor? Have I ever told you about it? Gohan asked I Chingping very seriously. No, big brother Gohan, you've never told me about this. I Chingping shook her head, and her face suddenly became very puzzled. That's right, big brother Gohan, you've never told me this. How do I know? Strange. Big brother Gohan, I'm sorry, I don't know why, but I just know. What else do you know? Gohan asked impatiently. Let me think. Before I Chingping could finish her words, her entire body stiffened. Her eyeballs almost popped out from her eye sockets, and she fainted in an instant. Gohan quickly stroked I Chingping's head, only to find that I Chingping's forehead was shockingly hot. It was probably more than 40 degrees Celsius, a temperature that could burn a person to death. Master? What's going on? Gohan quickly asked old Lord Taishang. Master wants to ask you, what did you use to fill this child's soul? Old Lord Taishang stroked his beard and asked. It's disciple's consciousness fragment. When Gohan said this, he suddenly felt cheerful. Could it be because of disciple's consciousness fragment? So when Chingping absorbed disciple's consciousness fragment, she also absorbed disciple's memory fragment. That's right. You're really smart. Old Lord Taishang nodded. But you should have realized this a long time ago. Did you not realize that when you first resurrected this child, she already knew everything about you, like the back of her hand? There are many things that you don't need to tell her yourself, and she'll do it according to your needs. Gohan was speechless. Only now did he remember that when he was on the verge of death due to the loss of his consciousness fragment, he clearly didn't ask Lu Chingping to do anything, nor did he give any hints. However, Lu Chingping made the most correct decision at the first moment. She offered her chastity and used the third sword of the 3 green lotus swords to successfully resurrect his consciousness. At the same time, she also eliminated all the hidden dangers of the 3 green lotus swords. At first, Gohan only thought that it was purely a coincidence. Now that he thought about it, could it be because Lu Chingping knew his memories, so she naturally knew what he should do in this situation? Not long ago, when the Goo Black Tortoise was named, although Gohan didn't want the Goo Black Tortoise to end up with the Goo Black Tortoise's fate, it just so happened to be something that fate had decided. Such a contradictory situation made Gohan fall into silence. He didn't want to change anything, nor was he willing to make a decision. In this situation, it was Lu Chingping's decision to give the naming rights to Artoria, and in the end, she entrusted the Goo Black Tortoise to Artoria. At first, Gohan only thought that Lu Chingping wanted to improve her relationship with Artoria. Later, after Lu Chingping committed suicide, he felt that it was Lu Chingping's decision to let him leave without any worries. Only now did Gohan realize that because Lu Chingping clearly knew that in reality, Artoria was the Goo Black Tortoise's mother. So in order to cooperate with fate, she also entrusted the Goo Black Tortoise to Artoria. Thinking of these things, Gohan's forehead instantly became dripping with sweat. His pupils were fixed on the unconscious I Chingping. If these were all true, then I Chingping, who was also resurrected because of his consciousness fragment, would not be like Lu Chingping, knowing his past memories like the back of her hand. This matter was not as simple as memory. Gohan thought of an even more terrifying and unbelievable possibility. Why is she unconscious now? Lu Qingping didn't react like this back then. After a moment of silence, Gahan asked, "These memories are a little too much for a child's soul. I'm afraid she will need to grow up to fully understand these memories." Old Lord Taishang said faintly, "All the memories from your birth until these memory fragments. With these memories, I'm afraid she will know you better than you know yourself." "Then will Lu Qingping's memories also recover?" Gohan asked again. "Yes, but not the real Lu Qingping." Old Lord Taishang's words sounded very mysterious. "I understand now." Gohan nodded. "The memories she recovered are actually my memories of Lu Qingping's, not the real Lu Qingping's." "That's right." Old Lord Taishang sighed. "She will love you as much as the Lu Qingping in your memories loves you. What a pitiful child. She is destined to live on carrying someone else's memories. I'm afraid she won't be able to live her own life in the future. If I leave this seamless corridor, will these memories be erased by the seamless corridor?" Gohan asked again, gritting his teeth. "She was resurrected using your consciousness fragment. So, as long as you don't die, these things won't disappear. Even the seamless corridor can't erase them." Old Lord Taishang said. "I understand now." Gohan nodded. "Then if she leaves this place, she won't return to the time when she entered this place, but 800 years ago, right?" "Why do you say that?" Old Lord Taishang looked at Gohan curiously. "I don't know." Gohan shook his head. "But this is fate. Yes, this is fate. You've understood it very well." Old Lord Taishang smiled, then walked down from the praying mat and lightly patted Gohan's shoulder. "All right, it's time to send her away. Otherwise, when she wakes up, she definitely won't want to leave you." As soon as Old Lord Taishang's voice fell, Yi Qingping directly disappeared in front of Gohan, and the little book flipped to the 6th page. In the next second, the entire book began to burn by itself, finally turning into a pile of ashes that fell to the ground of the library. "Now it's your problem." Old Lord Taishang helped Gohan up from the ground and used the horsetail whisk in his hand to pat the ashes on Gohan's clothes. "In order to send these 6 people away, your master's Taiji diagram was destroyed. Now it's really a difficult thing to send you away from here." Year 2587 of the AD calendar. In the ruins of Tianjin City, countless Yuanko were wandering among the ruins. Then, the entire ruins began to tremble, and a golden pillar of light suddenly shot out from the ruins. The huge heat melted the metal ruins into molten iron, scaring the wandering Yuanko into fleeing in all directions. This golden light contained a powerful aura, causing these low-level Yuanko to feel immense fear. "Where is this? How long did I sleep for?" A huge hole was pierced through the ruins by the golden light. A girl wearing Shangpantai Middle School's uniform jumped out from this hole, touching her head in pain as she muttered to herself. She only remembered that she was looking for that idiot, Jojo Dangma, and then she found a door of light. After that, her memory disappeared without a trace. It was as though she had slept for a long time, but this sleep was a little too long. The previously bustling human city had turned into a pile of waste. It looked as though hundreds of years had passed. "Wait, I think I wrote something on my hand. Not only my hand, but my entire body is covered with words, and they're written in blood." The girl suddenly looked at her body as if she had discovered a new continent, but most of the words were covered by her clothes. Of course, the girl was too embarrassed to take off her clothes in public, so she began to run at top speed. However, when she finally found a private space, the blood on her body was completely soaked in sweat. In the end, she could only see the words Artoria, Jojo Dangma, and friend. Don't tell me that this stinky man Jojo Dangma slept with a woman named Artoria behind my back. Misaka Mikoto was furious. At the same time, in another place a few days later, Jojo Dangma found himself on a small island in the middle of a lake. When Jojo Dangma finally swam from the island to the shore, the cold lake water had washed away all the blood on his body. Chapter 14:16. Do you want to eat the snake together? I can't eat it alone. When Jojo Dangma had just struggled out of the water, he heard a man's voice beside him. Who is it? Jojo Dangma suddenly became nervous. Although he had lost a lot of memories, the memory of when he first entered this world was still there. Jojo Dangma clearly knew that this was a dangerous world, and his fantasy killer was too useless in terms of actual combat. The guys here could take his life at any time. Therefore, the first thing he saw was a shiny bald head, and in front of the bald head, there was a huge snake with a ferocious face and a pair of domineering horns. It was hundreds of meters long, with a fierce face and a pair of domineering horns. Well, it was more appropriate to call it a dragon. You ate a dragon, Jojo Dangma said in horror. So this thing is called a dragon. The bald head showed a sudden realization and a somewhat innocent expression. It was him who wanted to eat me first. So you ate it. Jojo Dangma became even more afraid. I didn't want to eat him at first, but I accidentally killed him with a punch. I can't let such a body of meat go to waste, right? It tastes quite delicious. The bald man cut a piece of dragon meat and chewed it in his mouth. He was full of admiration. Hey, you don't have that annoying smell on you. It seems that we can become friends. The bald head chewed while looking at Jojo Dangma with interest. Chidu. Chidu. In a trance, Chidu Isuzu heard a familiar voice calling her name. She struggled to open her eyes and saw a beautiful and concerned face in front of her. Your Highness, where's this place? Didn't I fall into a big pit? Did you save me? Chidu Isuzu said while touching her head that had a headache. Great. Chidu, you finally woke up. I thought I would never see you again. The princess was so excited that she held Chidu Isuzu in her arms and said loudly while crying, Princess. Chidu Isuzu's face turned red. Princess, don't be like this. I just slept for a night. Let's continue to build the big windmill. We promised the people here. What joke? What windmill? The princess looked at Thousand Doe 50 Bell in surprise, then seemed to understand something. She helped Thousand Doe 50 Bell up from the bed and said, Thousand Doe, get up and take a look at the outside world. Oh my God, our amusement park was built overnight? Thousand Doe Isuzu looked at the amusement park that was running at full speed and had countless people playing inside and exclaimed in surprise, Did I come back from the infernal corridor alive? But how did I leave that dangerous place? A figure suddenly appeared in the forest of a vast mountain range. I wonder if the human army has captured the Martyr's Palace yet. I must fight until I die. Artoria propped herself up with her sword. Her heart was still filled with the will to fight, and just as she was about to declare war on the past, a loud cry broke her out of it all. Why is there a child here? Only then did Artoria realize that there was a naked baby crying loudly in the corner. The cry was so mournful that everyone who heard it couldn't help but shed tears in their hearts. Who would leave such a cute child here? Artoria instinctively held the child in her arms and flew into the sky. She looked around and found that she was in a huge mountain range that stretched for hundreds of kilometers, and it was the core of the mountain range. It was hard to imagine that humans would have the ability to deliberately leave a child in such an uninhabited area. What was even stranger was that the child just happened to appear at her feet. This couldn't be a coincidence. There must be a secret that Artoria didn't know about. Could this have something to do with my lost memory? Artoria was keenly aware that she seemed to have lost a part of her memory, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't recall what she had experienced in that part of her memory. So the child who suddenly appeared at her feet was the absolute key. So Artoria began to carefully examine the child's body, and as expected, Artoria found a secret. On the child's back, there were lines of words written in blood. These words seemed to be written with fingernail tips, so although the handwriting was small, the words written did not look right at all. They were crooked and ugly. It's English. What surprised Artoria even more was that the words were all written in English. In the process of living with humans, Artoria already knew that English had become a language of the past. Only a small number of scholars still retained some knowledge of English. Other than that, there were not many in the entire human society who could still write English. Looking further, Artoria was even more frightened. Although the English notes were scribbled and difficult to read, she could vaguely see that they were quite similar to her own notes. As she deciphered the English words one by one, Artoria was instantly dumbfounded. I'm good. I know that I will be puzzled when I read this. This text is only to tell me that in my lost memory, I met the man I love the most in my life, Gahan, and also our most adorable child, Gu Xuanwu, and my best friend in life, Qindo Isuzu. Although we left the world of the seamless corridor together, we had no choice but to lose our memories due to space-time disorder. Please take good care of my child, or I will regret it for the rest of my life. Gohan will be born in 3,000 years, and Qindo Isuzu is in the dimensional rift in Korea. I must not forget this. I must reunite with them. No, this is not my child. How can I have a child? After reading the text, Artoria instinctively threw the solid black tortoise in her hand. Seeing that the young solid black tortoise was about to fall to the ground from a height of tens of meters, Artoria appeared under the solid black tortoise in the next second and caught the solid black tortoise in her hand again. How can this be my child? The two of us don't look alike at all. Artoria looked at the wrinkled little face of the Gu Xuanwu and muttered to herself. But in Artoria's heart, she always felt a sense of familiarity with this baby. It was as if they had a special relationship. She could even feel the aura of the baby's blood that made her feel attached to it. I have to figure out the truth. It seems that I can only find this Gahan and this Qindo Isuzu. Artoria stood there silently for a long time before she came to a decision. But Artoria remembered that when she entered the seamless corridor, it was the year 2584 of the human era, but this message said that Guhan was born in the year 3000. This made Artoria feel extremely puzzled. Could it be that she had fallen in love with a man who would only be born in the future, and even had a child with him? This was simply too baffling. Thinking of this, Artoria wanted to figure out the truth even more. Because she did not know where she was at this time, Artoria did not dare to use the void gate to hurry. Fortunately, this bit of mountain road was nothing to Artoria. She walked through the jungle as if she was flying. Just as she was about to leave the jungle, Artoria's footsteps suddenly stopped because she found a large group of yellow little creatures constantly running away. As they ran away, they were chanting, "Pikachu, Pikachu." This sounds a little retarded, but also a little cute. What happened over there? Artoria looked in the direction where these Pikachu escaped from. Her curiosity drove Artoria to walk in that direction. As a result, it did not take long before she saw a mess. There were charred marks everywhere, and in the center of the battlefield, there was an electrocuted figure lying on the ground. Beside him was a broken longsword. If it was not for the slight rise and fall of the person's chest, Artoria would have thought that the person was dead. So it's a Yuan Ko. The charred corpse also sensed Artoria's arrival and said in a weak voice that seemed to emit sparks, "Kill me. Let me die a quick death." Why should I kill you? Artoria sighed, then reached out and took the dimensional pocket from the charred corpse's waist. She placed it in the corpse's hand and said, "I know that you humans all have a medical pod in your dimensional pocket. Take out your medical pod. I can save you." That's really strange. There's actually a Yuan Ko who is willing to save me. Although the other party said that, his hands moved very quickly. He immediately took out the medical pod from his dimensional pocket. Then, Artoria carried the body into the medical pod and then sat beside the medical pod and waited silently. It was not until a day had passed that a naked young man climbed out of the medical pod. "Thank you, Miss Artoria," the man said to Artoria gratefully. "You know me?" Artoria was slightly surprised. Miss Artoria's story is widely spread among us humans. Every child has seen your image. I recognized you the first time I saw you. The young man smiled honestly and then introduced himself. "My name is Gu Jin Official, and I'm currently a famous sword-bearer. But as long as I'm not, I will definitely ascend to the throne. When that time comes, I'll be called Gu Jin Jiendi." What an arrogant man. Hearing the young man's self-introduction, the image of another human suddenly appeared in Artoria's mind, but she could not remember who this human was. Chapter 14:17. So, Miss Artoria, you're looking for a man named Gahan. Artoria felt that this human swordsman might know something about the mysterious Gahan, so she took the initiative to ask this human. "Sorry, I'm afraid I can't help you with this. If you want to find this person's information just based on a name, and he might not even be a human from Yuzhong City, I'm afraid you can only find this through the Sword Committee. If I'm a fairy sword level swordsman, then the Sword Committee will pay attention to me. Otherwise, I'm just a famed sword level swordsman, so the Sword Committee will not make an exception for me. Gu Jin official touched his head awkwardly. But there's one thing I'm sure of. Among all the swordsmen above spirit sword level, there's no one named Gohan. There's only a handful of spirit sword level swordsmen, and there's definitely no one named Gohan. Is that so? Could he really be a human born after the year 3000? Artoria mumbled softly. What 3000 AD? Isn't it 2879 AD now? Miss Artoria, you really like to joke. Gu Jin official heard Artoria's muttering and muttered. But Miss Artoria, why do you want this human named Gohan? Did this human offend you? If that's the case, as long as you go to Yinjing City and lodge a protest, the Yinjing City Sword Committee will definitely help you find a human named Gohan. I don't know if he offended me or not, but this child's father seems to be that guy named Gohan. I just want to find the child's father. Artoria didn't mention that this child might be her own child. This was a matter of course. How could Artoria take the initiative to say something so embarrassing? That's easy. Gu Jin official slapped his thigh. If you want to find the child's father, you just need to apply to Yinjing City Sword Committee, and the Sword Committee will take the initiative to find the child's kin in all human genetic records. I see. Artoria nodded and said to Gu Jin Jindi, then let's go to Yinjing City and investigate the child's father. Child, wake up. It's very dangerous here. You can't sleep here. Yuan Ko might eat you at any time. When Yi Qingping heard such a shout, she gradually woke up from her sleep. She murmured, Brother Gohan, where is this place? I'm so cold. This is the Yuzhong Desert. As for that Brother Gohan you mentioned, I'm sorry, but I didn't see any human corpses nearby. I think your Brother Gohan is afraid that something bad has happened to him. At this time, the sky was dark. Yi Qingping, who was still in a daze, could not see the appearance of the person in front of her. Moreover, Yi Qingping's mind was not clear. She mumbled, that's impossible. My Brother Gohan is a celestial sword wielder. He's very capable. He even killed Hong Grade Yuan Ko without hesitation. He's the person who likes me the most. This child must be crazy. A celestial sword wielder. How could a celestial sword wielder leave you here alone? The person in the dark side. It seems like this child must have suffered a lot of trauma. That's why her memory is a little messed up. Child, what's your name? The person patted Yi Qingping's face and asked. My surname is Yi. My name is Yi Qing. Qing. Before Yi Qingping could finish, she fainted again. Yi Qing? She's from our Zongzi tribe. Didn't the people of our Zongzi tribe die out? And her name is also Yi Qing. Could it be? Could it be? Could it be? This is my long-lost daughter. The age also matches. Is she already so old? The person exclaimed in shock. The more he looked at Yi Qing's appearance, the more he felt that it was similar to his own. Big brother Ida, what are you doing here? It's too dangerous outside. Let's hurry back to the camp. A woman in her 30s walked over. She looked at Ida affectionately, but she was also a little reserved. This woman carried 2 long swords on her back. It seemed like she was a sword wielder of the celestial sword wielder level. There's a child here. Hurry up and treat her. See if her life is in danger. Ida hurriedly handed Yi Qingping, who was in his arms, to the woman. Hey, big brother Ida, this child looks like you. After the woman saw Yi Qingping's appearance clearly, she instinctively said this. Ida nodded. If I'm not wrong, this child might be the reason why I returned to the Yuzhong Desert. What? The woman covered her mouth in excitement. Big brother Ida, could this child be your long-lost son, Yi Qing? But didn't we just go to the Zongzi tribe to investigate? All the people in the Zongzi tribe were attacked by Yuan Ko and are all dead? That's right. But this child is very likely to be the only survivor who escaped from Yuan Ko's hands. Moreover, before she fainted, she said that her name is Yi Qing, and she looks so similar to me. I'm afraid she's really my poor child. Yi Qing. Then the child's mother. The woman looked at the child lovingly. Her mother is probably dead. Otherwise, she wouldn't have left the child alone here. Ida shook his head and sighed deeply. What a poor child. The woman looked at Yi Qingping with even more love. She raised the child high in the air and said excitedly, if she doesn't have a mother anymore, then let me be her mother. I'm already 30 years old, but I'm still infertile. I'm afraid that God has given me a child. From today onwards, she will be a child of the Lun Yin family. Xiao Ai, how can you do that? The Lun Yin family only has one descendant. How can you let someone else have the bloodline? Ito was shocked by the woman's words. It's precisely because the Lun Yin family only has one descendant that I need a child. Fleeting Love paused for a moment before continuing shyly. Moreover, he's your child. I'm more than happy to let your child inherit the Fleeting Time family. Xiao Ai. Ida looked at him even more excitedly. Then in the wilderness, the two of them rolled together. That's strange. I thought that we would have to explain your identity to Miss Artoria because of the superdimensional barrier. Who would have thought that we would enter Yinjing City on the day that the superdimensional barrier is being maintained? Gu Jin said with a strange tone as he led Artoria into Yinjing City. It's better. I don't want these people to know that I've been here. Artoria nodded. All right, then let's go directly to the Sword Committee to return this child. Gu Jin brought Artoria and Gu Xuanwu into the core area of Yinjing City and applied to the Youth and Child Welfare Center to identify the child's father. Hello, I'm Xian, the person in charge of the identification department. Come with me. The man was very handsome, but he had facial paralysis. He looked at them expressionlessly the entire time. Xian led them into a room full of equipment. He drew the blood of the tortoise for examination. After a series of experiments, his expression suddenly became extremely serious. How is it, Mr. Xian? Did you find out who the child's father is? Gu Jin asked carefully as he sensed something was amiss. No. Xian shook his head. I've compared all human DNA databases. There's no DNA from the child's father. How can this be? Gu Jin exclaimed. Could the child's father be a wild survivor that didn't belong to the 8 base cities? Can we find out who the child's mother is? Artoria asked after some hesitation. Mother, Xian sneered. I also didn't compare the child's mother's DNA in a human database. But interestingly, I did match the DNA of a Yuan Ko. What? Lord Xian, what is the meaning of this? Gu Jin was shocked. He didn't know what was going on. On the other side, Artoria trembled as if she was hit by a heavy blow. What I mean is, although the child's father is a human, the mother is a real Yuan Ko. And the DNA of this Yuan Ko matches. Right, that Yuan Ko looks similar to this lady. She is the universe-level Yuan Ko King Arthur Artoria, who disappeared 300 years ago. I can't believe she's still alive and gave birth to a child with a human. If we didn't keep Artoria's DNA, I wouldn't believe it, Xian said in amazement. Artoria. Gu Jin turned around in disbelief and looked at Artoria. While Xian was caught off guard, Artoria snatched the child from his hands and opened the nether gate, disappearing into the nether in the blink of an eye. My mind is in a mess. What happened? Gu Jin looked at the scene in front of him blankly. What happened in a few seconds was beyond his comprehension. This is going to be a big problem. Our Yinjing City is actually being swaggered into by Yuan Ko. Xian glared at Gu Jin. Gu Jin lowered his head in shame. Bringing a universe-class bandit into Yinjing without permission was a huge mistake. Gu Jin might have to spend the rest of his life in the disciplinary committee. Xian stared at Gu Jin viciously. Gu Jin looked at Xian. Forget it. You're a good person too. You just didn't think it through and made a mistake. Xian patted Lei Jin's shoulder. Forget it. I'll pretend this never happened. Keep it a secret, or else I can't bear to see the rest of your life ruined. Thank you. Thank you, Master Xian. Gu Jin thanked Xian gratefully. From then on, Gu Jin never told anyone about Artoria's story, even after he ascended to the throne. Chapter 1418. I didn't expect someone to survive the hands of those 3 idiots. What a waste of my effort to lure them to the Zongzi tribe. Ida showed a vicious expression as he looked at Yi Qing, who was sleeping peacefully in a med bay. I know you're not my child because my child is a son, not a daughter. But there's a reason for that. That stupid woman, Fleeting Love, didn't notice your gender and decided to make you the heir of the Fleeting family clan. Doesn't that mean that the Fleeting family clan will become the wealth of our Yi family? This is great. I'll let you Yin Jing people who look down on me know that the most noble bloodline in your eyes belongs to our Yi clan from now on. Ida laughed maniacally. But this child must know what I did in the Zongzi tribe, and her gender must be changed. Otherwise, everything will be exposed. We can't let Xiao AI know about this, or we'll both be finished. With that said, Ida took out a black and white fruit from his dimensional pouch. Yin Yang fruit. I got this from Luffy. I thought it wouldn't be of much use, but it's actually useful now. Ida opened the med bay and stuffed the fruit into Yi Qingping's mouth. You can switch yin and yang after eating the yin yang fruit, turning from a woman to a man. You can even block all your past memories and become a new personality. This is great. This is perfect. From today onwards, you are my son, my dear Yi Qing. Ha ha ha. Ida started laughing maniacally. Ha ha. This is really my daughter. When Artoria opened the void gate and reappeared in this world, she was already in a land of ice and snow. Until now, Artoria didn't really believe that this child was her biological daughter. But the evidence was right in front of her. Human DNA couldn't be wrong. She didn't know Xian, so there was no reason for him to lie to her. This child named Gu Xuanwu was indeed her child. How can this be? Just who is that Gu Han? Why would I have a child with a guy I don't even know? This is simply too inconceivable. Just what happened in the memory that I lost. Artoria pounded her head in pain, curiosity about the truth filling her brain. By the way, my message said that a woman named Chidu Isuzu, who lives in a dimensional rift in North Korea, is my good friend. She's also a woman whose name I've never heard before. Then she must have met me when I lost my memory. If that's the case, she must know what happened to me at that time. Artoria stood up abruptly. I remember now. I had a huge battle with Gilgamesh, and he was sealed in a dimensional rift in North Korea. Could it be that Chidu Isuzu is in that dimensional rift? Artoria said excitedly. Artoria immediately rushed to North Korea, but when she arrived, she was surprised to find that the entire area was blocked by a high wall. Artoria tried to enter through the high wall, but found that there was a huge barrier outside. The strength was even thicker than the human's superdimensional barrier system. It was impossible for Artoria to break through the barrier and enter. What should I do? Artoria looked at the barrier helplessly. She could feel a human approaching her from inside the barrier. She had to leave this place. Honorable King Arthur, you want to enter this place, right? Just when Artoria was at her wit's end, a sudden voice rang in her ear. Yes, who are you? Why can you appear in my ear? Artoria immediately asked warily. Don't be afraid, I won't harm you. I'm on the same side as you. I'm the closest person to your husband, Gahan. He was the one who asked me to bring you in. As soon as the voice fell, a door opened in front of Artoria. What frightened Artoria was that this door was not a void door, but a dimensional door. It was a door to a dimensional world. Don't panic. Since you're going to the dimensional rift, you can only enter through a dimensional door. Don't worry, I have no ill intentions towards you. You have to believe me. I've lived in this world for millions of years, and I've never lied to anyone. The voice said calmly, but its voice was full of majesty. Even the great King Arthur could not help but immerse himself in this majesty. While his mind was still in a daze, his body instinctively reacted and walked into the dimensional door. I actually came in. Who are you? Why are you helping me? When Artoria woke up, she found herself in the dimensional rift of the Radiant Paradise. She immediately asked the voice, I am sect leader Tong Tian. The other party's melodious voice rang out and then disappeared completely. Who am I? And who are you? When Yi Qingping opened his eyes, he stared blankly at the man and woman in front of him. You're Yi Qing, my biological son, Yi Qing. Qing-er, have you forgotten about your father? Ida pulled Yi Qing into his arms, and tears began to stream down his cheeks. Fleeting Love, who was beside him, started to cry as well. I'm I Ching? Then who is I Chingping? Who is Gahan? I Chingping thought in a daze. These two names suddenly popped up in his mind, but he couldn't remember anything. In the following days, after Da's constant indoctrination and narration, I Chingping finally accepted that he was Da's biological son. He had only lost his memory because of the tragedy of his tribe's annihilation. The group slayed demons and entered Yinjing City, then Fleeting Time Mountain, and finally arrived at the Fleeting Time family's territory. Fleeting Love quickly got into an intense argument with his family. Fleeting Love told his father that he wanted to adopt I Ching as his son and make I Ching the heir of the Fleeting Time family. Fleeting Love's father, who was the current head of the Fleeting Time family, strongly objected to this decision. Fleeting Love was only 30 years old. They felt that Fleeting Love might not be able to have a child with Ida. If it was someone else, they might be able to give birth to a child of the Fleeting Time family. I Ching, who was still in a daze when she saw her parents and grandfather arguing fiercely, began to wander around the Lun Yin aristocratic clan. In the end, she arrived near a sword essence detector and tested her sword essence in a daze. When the result of 15,000 quarks of innate sword essence appeared, the entire Lun Yin aristocratic clan was shocked. This was the human with the highest amount of innate sword essence they had ever seen. In the end, I Ching was left in the Fleeting Time family and became the first adopted son of the Fleeting Time family. No one knew about this. Even within the Fleeting Time family, it was a taboo. People only knew that the Fleeting Time family suddenly had a child called Fleeting Youth. They did not even know if the child was a boy or a girl. You said that you don't remember that part of your memories? When Artoria finally met Chidu Isuzu, she raised her doubts to Chidu Isuzu, but Chidu Isuzu gave Artoria such an answer. But you can take a look at this. Chidu Isuzu took out a few photos from his most secretive drawer. Artoria took a closer look and realized that the photos were of bloody words written on her body. These are the words I found written in my own blood on my body after I woke up. Chidu Isuzu pointed to the words on the photo and said, although some of the words are already unrecognizable, the rest of the words are very clear. It says father, Gahan, mother, Artoria, child, Gu Xuanwu. Chidu Isuzu sighed. I think this can verify the words on your child. She is indeed the child of you and Gahan. Artoria took a closer look at the photos and found that in the paragraphs between mother and Artoria, some of the details have become extremely blurred, and Artoria instinctively felt that there might be something important hidden in them. You said that you entered the seamless corridor directly from this entrance, right? That means that there is also an entrance to the seamless corridor here. Artoria suddenly said, what do you mean? Do you want to? Chidu Isuzu stood up from the bed in a panic. That's right. I have to figure out the truth. If my memories are really lost in the seamless corridor, then I think as long as I can return to the seamless corridor, I will be able to find my lost memories. Artoria said with determination. Chidu Isuzu hesitated for a moment. Then what about this child? Are you going to bring her back? Of course not. I don't know if I will be able to come back. If possible, I hope that this child can stay here. You could be the child's mother. If her father was really born more than 100 years later, then I think you will come looking for this child sooner or later. When that time comes, you can let this child follow her father. Artoria said calmly. And so, under Chidu Isuzu's guidance, Artoria once again entered the seamless corridor. Chapter 1419. My good disciple, what are you thinking about? After sending off I Ching, old Lord Taishang looked at Guhan's dazed expression and asked with a smile while stroking his beard. Your disciple is thinking that your disciple might be a smart guy. Your disciple always thought that your disciple would go back to the past and start a story with Zhetian Jindi. I didn't expect that Zhetian Jindi was sent back by your disciple. Just like your disciple's newborn child, I clearly know what her ending is, but I can only watch her leave. Gahan sighed. Don't belittle yourself. You've already done the most correct thing. Old Lord Taishang patted Gahan's head. Moreover, you don't know what your child's true ending is. Her future is very important. When you truly know the truth, your master promises that you will be shocked. Gohan smiled bitterly. Master, if you already know the truth, then why don't you tell your disciple, lest I have to search for the truth like I did with I Ching? Just like how you personally sent away your own daughter for the sake of fate, your master can't tell you the truth because of fate and can only let you experience it yourself. Old Lord Taishang smiled. Then, Master, have you already seen my final fate? Can I defeat the mastermind behind the scenes? Gohan asked after hesitating for a while. This master really doesn't know. Old Lord Taishang sighed. If Master knew what your final fate was, then Master wouldn't be staying here. Master, if I may be so bold to ask, since you've already surpassed the prehistoric level, why are you still staying here? Why don't you leave? Gohan asked curiously. It's not that Master can't leave, but Master can only stay here. Master's physical body is already gone. This is only the last bit of Master's soul. Only this frozen space and time can contain Master's soul. Otherwise, once Master leaves this place, he will vanish in a puff of smoke. Old Lord Taishang said indifferently. But Master's task has been completed. The rest is up to you. Master, are you sending me away? Gohan asked. What? Do you really want to stay here? Old Lord Taishang knocked on Gohan's head, while Gohan responded with a simple and honest smile. Disciple knew it. Master wouldn't leave Disciple alone in this damn place. Master would definitely have a way to send Disciple out. So you pretended to be generous in front of your women and gave them a chance to go out. Old Lord Taishang knocked on Gohan's head 3 more times and scolded with a smile. You even schemed against Master. Gohan was rash. Please forgive me, Master. Gohan apologized honestly. Get lost. Fate won't let you stay here. Even if you don't want to leave, I'll ask you to leave. However, I have to warn you. After you leave, don't ever come back. Otherwise, I won't be able to send you away. Just like opening the River of Time, Old Lord Taishang did the same and opened the River of Time again. This is the only way for you to leave this place. However, whether it's the space-time or the time you appear in, it's all decided by the River of Time and Space. Go in. Old Lord Taishang said to Gohan. Disciple thanks Master. If Disciple can really save this world, then Disciple will definitely return here to accompany Master. Gohan promised solemnly, then jumped into the River of Time alone. It's useless. This little bit of primordial spirit really can't support opening the River of Time twice. Forget it. I've done what I can. Tontian, I hope the 3 of us can return to the beginning. After watching Gohan leave, Old Lord Taishang's body began to erode bit by bit, then turned into starlight and sprinkled in the library. This is a dimensional space. No wonder Master said that the space-time and time that the River of Time leaves are random. I didn't think I would be released into a dimensional space. This is going to be troublesome. Even Gohan felt a headache coming on. After leaving through the River of Time, Gohan did not return to the real world as he expected. Or rather, he returned to Earth. Instead, he appeared in a space filled with all kinds of soap bubbles. Gohan had seen this space before. This was the dimensional space that Gohan passed through when he entered the Martyr's Palace with Liu Bei and his 2 brothers. He never thought that the River of Time would directly send Gohan into a dimensional space. A dimensional space was not a safe place. It was filled with endless dimensional worlds. If a dimensional world was compared to a planet, then the dimensional space that contained it was the universe. This dimensional space was tens of thousands of times larger than the universe that Earth was in. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to find a way back to Earth in such a place. It must be known that even Kinzu was lost in this dimensional space, unable to return to the human world for 1,000 years. For Gohan to find a way back to Earth in this dimensional space was simply a fantasy. Gohan had to cut open the dimensional wall of the dimensional world and check the dimensional world after dimensional world before he could determine which one belonged to Earth. All of you come out. Gohan patted his dimensional pocket, and 10 sword maidens flew out. They were liberated in the dimensional space and transformed into beautiful girls. I'm sorry. It took me so long to let you out. It's because I couldn't liberate you in the seamless corridor. Looking at his 10 beautiful sword maidens, Gohan said with some shame. He had actually kept his sword maidens in his scabbard for almost 8 years. These sword maidens must have been bored to the point of going crazy, especially Qingpin. Gohan could totally imagine Qingpin's expression. It's all right. But what surprised Gohan was that his sword maidens' reactions were rather calm. In addition, Qingpin was yawning as if she hadn't woken up yet. There wasn't any impatience on her face either. She looked no different from usual. Could it be? A guess came to Gohan's mind. After whispering to Qi Dian for a while, Gohan learned that the sword maidens felt that they had only been in the scabbard for less than a day. Naturally, they wouldn't feel impatient. After all, Gohan would often lock them up for a week at a time. One day was nothing. Less than a day. That's the time between me and the 3 Liu Bei brothers entering the dimensional space and me entering the seamless corridor. It seems that time in the seamless corridor is a time where the sword maidens have no sense of existence. That's why I spent 8 years in the seamless corridor. But to the sword maidens, this period of time doesn't exist at all. Gohan said thoughtfully, "Hey, where is this? Where the hell did you bring us to? It's so desolate and cold." After the sword maidens finished stretching their bodies, they began to examine the illusion around them. When they saw the miraculous scene of the dimensional space, they were all stunned. They had never seen such a scene before. This is... Just as Gohan was about to explain, Heaven Reliant Sword cut in. I recognized this place. This is a dimensional space. Back in the day, Zhetian Jinni fought against the Martyr's Palace. She used this dimensional space to attack the Martyr's Palace's headquarters. That's why I've seen this place before. This is a dimensional space. There's no mistaking it. What? Hearing Heaven Reliant Sword's words, all the sword maidens were in an uproar. As sword maidens, they naturally knew what a forbidden zone of dimensional space was for humans and sword maidens. They had actually ended up in a place where they couldn't enter or leave. The sword maidens felt like they were about to collapse. All right, it's just a dimensional space. What's there to be afraid of? Back in the day, we also fought against the old master in a dimensional space. In the end, we still returned. Celestial Demoralizing Sword said smugly when he saw the sword maidens in an uproar. That's great. Celestial Demoralizing Sword. You know the way to return to Earth. Hurry up and tell us. We love you to death. Heaven Reliant hugged Celestial Demoralizing Sword and said intimately. Normally, Heaven Reliant Sword would definitely feel a little annoyed if she heard such arrogant words from Celestial Demoralizing Sword. However, Celestial Demoralizing Sword's words were like heavenly music to Heaven Reliant Sword's ears. Heavens never bars one's way. Celestial Demoralizing Sword had actually miraculously returned to Earth from a dimensional space. She finally didn't have to be trapped in such a godforsaken place. I don't know. What made the sword maidens want to beat someone up was that Celestial Demoralizing Sword was actually so carefree and nonchalant as he replied. Back then, after we barely managed to seal the old master, it was Lord Yuanshi who asked his eldest disciple, Qi Jingzi, to send us back to Earth. At that time, we were already so weak that we all fell into a deep sleep. We only cared about sleeping and didn't know the way back. I'll beat you to death. You cheated my feelings. Heaven Reliant Sword raised his fist and was about to punch Celestial Demoralizing Sword's head. I want to come too. Qingpin also wants to fight. When Qingpin saw this, he immediately joined in happily. With Qingpin's participation, Douyu naturally didn't want to be outdone. In the end, other than the naturally cold past water sword and Juzi sword, the other 8 sword maidens all gathered together. Of course, they didn't fight for real. They only waved their fists. For their bodies, the damage caused by their fists was equivalent to 0. To put it bluntly, they actually didn't really want to fight. They were just using this method to dispel the ominous haze in their hearts. Chapter 14:20. Although he had already guessed that the path out of this subdimension would be incomparably long, Gohan and his sword maidens fooled around in the subdimension for a full year, but they still hadn't found a single way to leave. In truth, In this entire subdimension, aside from Gahan and Gahan's sword maidens, Gahan hadn't seen any other living beings. This place was eternally desolate, so desolate that Gahan felt as though he would be trapped here for the rest of his life. Some readers might find this strange. Wasn't this subdimension the same as the Seamless Corridor? Both were worlds where time flowed like water. Gahan had spent nearly 8 years in the Seamless Corridor, but he hadn't lost hope. Why was it that after spending just a year in this subdimension, he felt as though he was about to die? The reason was simple. Time in the Seamless Corridor was fundamentally different from time in this subdimension. The Seamless Corridor was a node where time was frozen. Although it felt as though an extremely long period of time had passed in the Seamless Corridor, in truth, not even a second or a minute had passed. This could be seen from the fact that his sword maidens didn't seem to feel anything for 8 years. More importantly, Gahan didn't feel hungry in the Seamless Corridor, and his body didn't show any signs of aging or maturing. Thus, time in the Seamless Corridor had indeed been frozen for Gahan. But this subdimension was different. It was a place that existed on an actual timeline. Just like the real world, living in a subdimension required eating and sleeping. Thus, during this past year, the food in Gahan's dimensional pocket began to disappear like water. Even though Gahan had prepared 30 years' worth of food, with Qingpin and Douyu, those two gluttons, 30 years' worth of food was only enough to support him for a year or so. By now, Gahan's dimensional pocket was about to run out of food, and in the end, even the world that Gahan had simulated was destroyed. As for the consciousness fragments that Gahan had split off, they all stayed quietly within his dimensional pocket. Gahan didn't plan on splitting off any more fragments, because even now, Gahan wasn't sure exactly how these fragments should be used. After all, that world was created from food. At critical moments, he still needed to restore the food to its original use. However, the Sword Maidens all said that the food tasted strange, making it hard to swallow. "It looks like we'll have to enter a subdimension," Gahan said as he looked at his empty dimensional pocket. The food in his dimensional pocket had already been used up, and finding food in a subdimension was clearly impossible. Thus, only by entering a subdimension would they have a chance at finding real food. Fortunately, there was no lack of subdimensions in this subdimension. Under Gahan's lead, they found the largest bubble-like subdimension. The slaying immortal sword lightly cut across the dimensional walls of this subdimension, and Gahan opened the door to it, allowing Gahan and enter. As soon as Gahan led his sword maidens into this world, it caused a huge commotion. Because the dimensional wall that Gahan cut was directly connected to a very densely populated area, Gahan and the others walked out of a spatial rift in front of hundreds of people, scaring the surrounding people into screaming. The densely populated area instantly became empty. "Hey, this seems to be Earth 2. Look at those words, they're so familiar. And here, isn't this a big shopping mall?" Qijian pointed at the surrounding scenery excitedly. The place that Gahan could possibly appear in was indeed a large shopping mall. There were all kinds of shops around, such as clothing stores, cosmetic stores, gourmet shops, and so on. There were many merchants timidly hiding behind the glass walls of the shops, cautiously looking at Gahan's strange group of 1 man and 10 women. No, the words here aren't Chinese. Etian looked at the signboards on the surrounding shops and said with a frown, "Of course they aren't Chinese, they're Japanese. It seems that we've landed in this subdimension's Japanese world," Gahan said faintly. He carefully counted all of Gahan's sword maidens. Apart from the victory sword, which understood ancient Greek, there seemed to be no other sword maidens who understood any other language besides Chinese. Fortunately, Gahan had learned a lot of different languages back then, otherwise he wouldn't even know what this world was. "We can't waste too much time in this subdimension. Once we replenish our food here, we'll immediately return to the subdimension and continue to find a way back to the real world," Gahan said. "Don't." Hearing Gahan's words, Etian suddenly became a little unhappy. "What's so good about that subdimension where even ghosts can't be seen? This world looks more fun. Why don't we stay here for a while before leaving? Otherwise, my spirit will really collapse." Gohan was about to refute Etion's words, but when Gohan turned around, he saw that almost all the sword maidens were looking at him with a pleading gaze. Even the past water sword couldn't help but look at him a few times. "All right, I got it," Gohan sighed. It seemed that the boring life in the subdimension for a year had really made the sword maidens' spirits collapse. If they didn't relax their tense nerves, they might completely break down. I wonder what's going on in the human world now. Gohan sighed in his heart. He could only hope that the River of Time would randomly send him to 3,012 years ago. That way, it would be possible for him to save Yanjing City, which had been destroyed in the hands of the 12 Zuwu and the pitiful people of Yuzhong City. Gohan was very afraid that when he returned to the real world, it would already be a few hundred years later, and the human race would have completely perished. Hooray! The Sword Maidens were not so flustered. After experiencing a year of emptiness, whether the human world was destroyed or not was no longer important to them. Anyway, the most important thing now was to eat, drink, and play to their heart's content. So, under Etion's lead, the Sword Maidens found a shop that looked the most magnificent and had the best food and rushed in, shocking all the staff in the shop. As for the other customers in the shop, they all fled from the door. Soon, only Gohan and his group of customers were left in the shop. Trouble. Seeing that the staff in the shop were also preparing to flee, Gohan couldn't help but frown. It was fine if the customers ran away, so as not to disturb them while they were eating. But if the staff ran away, who would cook for them? So, as soon as the sword chi in Gohan's body moved, all the entrances and exits of the restaurant were sealed by Gohan's sword chi. The staff who were preparing to flee in panic directly hit their heads on Gohan's sword chi. At first, they thought that they had hit the glass, but when they found that the glass door was still open and what was blocking their way was actually a gas, they were so scared that their bodies went limp. They looked at Gohan and the others in horror, as if they were afraid that Gohan would turn into a monster and be eaten alive by them. "Come here." Gohan's voice echoed throughout the entire restaurant. Although Gohan could read Fusang's language, he couldn't speak it, so in the end, he still blurted out Chinese. However, there were only a few Fusang people who understood Chinese, so Gohan's words directly became the voice of the devil in the ears of these waiters. It was more like a curse that urged them to die, making these waiters even more frightened. So the timid ones even peed themselves. "It's over. What is he saying? Will he kill us?" These waiters said in horror. "He seems to be calling us over." A waiter hiding in the corner suddenly said in a trembling voice, "Tianjun, do you know this devil's language?" Hearing this waiter's words, the other waiters immediately asked in a panic, This doesn't seem to be the devil's language. It's our country's Chinese," the waiter said in a low voice. It turned out that this waiter was actually a Chinese. No wonder he could understand Chinese. Baka. Chinese people are really devils. Hearing that this language was Chinese, a waiter who was born to dislike China and was full of hatred for traditional ethnic groups immediately said, The Chinese waiter laughed dryly. This was already the norm for him. The hatred between two countries was not so easy to get rid of. When he was in his own country, he often called the Japanese Japanese. However, just as the waiter just said that Chinese people were devils, he covered his throat in the next second as if something was strangling his neck. He began to breathe heavily as if he was about to suffocate. "It's over. This is a devil. This is a devil's curse." Seeing this waiter's reaction, the other waiters suddenly screamed, "All right, I just blocked his vocal cords. I don't want to hear his voice." Gohan's voice sounded in the restaurant again. "Changsheng Jun, this devil. No, this guy, what did he say? Can you translate it for us?" The waiter instinctively wanted to say the word devil, but when he recalled that the unlucky guy had only uttered a single devil incantation and became suffocating, he immediately swallowed the word devil and replaced it with a respectful Lord God. "God," he said that he only sealed Oikuin's vocal cords. "Oikuin's life will not be in danger." The waiter quickly translated, "You come here." Gohan could not be bothered to continue messing around with these Japanese. His sword ladies were starving, so he simply used a sword chi to capture the Huaxia man and bring in front of him. Ask them to serve me the best food in your restaurant. Give me as much as you have. Do you hear me? Gahan said coldly. Yes. Yes. Understood. Understood. The Chinese waiter, who was still in shock, immediately nodded and bowed. Then, he returned to the other waiters and told them about Gahan's request. The other waiters immediately rushed into the kitchen and began to prepare dishes for Gahan. Oh, it seems that I have become a Yuan Ko of this world. Seeing the mess in the restaurant, Gahan touched his chin and said with a wry smile. Chapter 14:21. These Japanese food are really disgusting. They're neither raw nor cooked. Our Chinese food is still the best. Etienne immediately said with a look of disdain after having a simple meal of the restaurant's dishes. However, she also won the deep agreement of the other sword maidens. They all expressed that the Japanese food was indeed very bad, but they still ate faster than one another. It couldn't be helped. Gahan had eaten too much of the terrible food in his dimensional pocket. It was indeed very delicious to have a change of taste occasionally. Gahan and the others were immersed in the world of food, but it was different outside the restaurant. A large number of police began to pour into the mall and evacuate the people inside one by one. Helicopters began to hover over the mall, and various snipers occupied important positions. Finally, a group of combatants wearing red and white combat uniforms rushed in. Great! It's the people from the Earth Peace United Organization, TPC. You're finally here. The policemen who were on guard immediately let out a long sigh of relief when they saw the TPC people appear. Hello, I'm Bigu, a member of the TPC. How's the situation here? What's the specific process? Can you determine the race and identity of the other party? A somewhat handsome man asked the policeman beside him. Yes, according to the witness report, these people appeared in the mall out of thin air without any warning. There are also witnesses who said that they saw the existence of the space crack, so they must be aliens. Although they all look like humans, they must be aliens disguised as humans. I'm sure. The policeman said excitedly. Then are they still in the mall now? What are they doing now? Bigu asked again. They're still in the mall. To be precise, they're in a restaurant. They kidnapped all the waiters in the restaurant. We tried to sneak in from the back door, but we found that all the entrances and exits were blocked by an invisible gas barrier, the policeman said. That's right, the policeman said. Did they kill these waiters? This is not clear, but at least from the range of surveillance outside the glass, they did not hurt the waiters. They have been sitting at the table and eating. Other than that, there is no other movement. The policeman said. Is that so? Dagu frowned and immediately walked towards the restaurant. Dagu, what are you doing? One of the female team members behind Dagu immediately grabbed his arm when she saw his actions. I don't think the situation is that bad. Maybe they don't mean any harm to humans. They're just hungry. That's why I feel that we can communicate with them and perhaps reach peace, Dagu said. No, this is too dangerous. What if they're all evil aliens and suddenly hurt you? No, you can't go over. The female team member quickly said. Lena, trust me. I won't be in danger. We can communicate, Dagu said firmly. Then, he pushed Lena's hand away and walked to the entrance of the restaurant. There really is an invisible barrier here. At the same time, a cautious expression appeared on his face. But this barrier is completely different from the energy barrier of our nebula M78. This barrier seems to be made of gas. That's strange. Can gas also form a barrier? How terrifyingly compressed this gas must be to achieve this. Dagu became even more cautious, because even he himself was unable to turn the gas into a barrier that could stop people from advancing. I like to see how hard this barrier is. With a thought, a mysterious light wrapped around Dagu's hand. Then, Dagu began to use all his strength to tear the barrier in front of him. The result surprised Dagu. After using almost 50% of his power of light, he barely managed to tear a hole in the barrier. The strength of this alien had far exceeded Dagu's imagination. So there are superhumans in this dimensional world. Dagu's damage to Gahan's sword chi barrier naturally did not escape Gahan's senses. So, with a thought from Gahan, the sword chi barrier in front of Dagu disappeared in an instant. Dagu did not expect this at all. As a result, he used too much force and fell into a table beside him, completely smashing it into pieces. Everyone who comes is a guest. Since you're here, let's sit down and have a chat, Gahan said calmly. At the same time, he sat alone at another table. You're actually speaking in Chinese. Dagu was taken aback, but judging from the other's tone, there did not seem to be any malice. Coupled with his special identity, Dagu did not have any fear and directly sat across from Gahan. Why can't I speak Chinese? Gahan asked curiously. No, because every alien that came to Earth spoke Fusang language, so I thought that all aliens knew Fusang language. Dagu smiled awkwardly. He suddenly felt the atmosphere in the entire restaurant ease up a lot. This was a good start. Great. It seems that this group of aliens has no malice. Team Dagu is communicating with them. The police and TPC members who had been nervously observing the situation in the restaurant immediately breathed a sigh of relief when they saw this scene. At this time, the conversation in the restaurant was still going on. Hello, I'm Dagu, a member of the Far East headquarters of the Earth Peace United Organization. May I ask which planet you're from and why you've come to Earth? If it's possible, we, the TPC, are willing to help you. Dagu said very sincerely. You say I'm an alien, but I think you're the alien. Gahan glanced at Dagu and sneered. You know who I am. Dagu suddenly became nervous. You must be an Ultraman. Gahan laughed. I've had some contact with your Ultraman King before, and I know that you Ultraman like to hide in human bodies. Also, you guys always have the unpleasant smell of leather on you. I'm very familiar with this smell. I smelled it on you just now. So I'm guessing you must be an Ultraman. I just don't know which Ultraman you are. Taylor? Savon? Leo? Or Oob? Gahan read out a few Ultraman names that had appeared on Earth. You know my missing brothers. Dagu jumped up from his seat in surprise. His reaction also surprised Gahan. Why did he have such a big reaction when he heard these names? What did he mean when he said they were missing? Yes, I've seen them in my world. How'd they go missing? Gahan asked. Actually, this world doesn't just have this one universe. There are many other universes, and every universe has Earth. Similarly, there is an Ultraman guarding Earth. But since 1,000 years ago, there have been many Ottal warriors who were stationed in different universes mysteriously disappearing. Some disappeared during battle, some disappeared while they were sleeping, and some even disappeared while they were in our Nebula M78. In the end, even the Ottal King, who could travel through countless universes, disappeared, Dagu said with a serious expression. Oh, it turns out that after Yuanko left the world that originally belonged to him, he no longer existed in his own world. After hearing Dagu's words, Gahan already understood what had happened. Those missing Ultraman must have been Yuanko, who had gone to Earth through the dimensional rift. There was no doubt about this. However, regarding this point, human scientists still had a period of debate. Some scientists believed that after Yuanko left his original dimensional world, a brand new Yuanko would immediately be born in the dimensional world. This was determined by the stability of the dimensional world itself. It was just like how monsters in online games would spawn new monsters after they died. However, some scientists believe that after Yuanko left the dimensional world, there would no longer be that Yuanko. Now, it seemed that the second scientist's conclusion was correct. After Yuanko left his dimensional world, it was true that he wouldn't be able to respawn again. The different universes that Dagu mentioned should be different dimensional worlds. Everything made sense. This should be the world that belonged to this Ultraman. However, this Ultraman's world should not have been invaded by the dimensional rift. Gahan lowered his head and pondered. Suddenly, he heard Dagu's incessant coughing. He looked up and saw Dagu's expectant expression. He knew that Dagu must be worried about his brothers, so he smiled and replied, I think I do know where your brothers and friends went. They all went to my universe, which belongs to my Earth. After that, they almost wiped out the humans on Earth. There are only a few survivors. That's impossible. Hearing this, Dagu immediately retorted, Our Ultraman's duty is to protect humanity. We Ultraman will never take the initiative to harm humans. But that is the truth. Gahan shrugged. Absolutely impossible. Our Ultraman brothers will never do such a thing, Dagu said with certainty. His tone was a little anxious and angry. It seemed that Gohan's words had hurt Dagu's feelings. All right, if you have the chance, go to our world and you will know. However, if you dare to go, I will definitely kill you. Gohan's smile carried a biting, cold, murderous aura, and Dagu could not help but feel a chill in his heart. Team member Dagu. Team member Dagu. How is the situation on your side? Do you need us to use Paimou's energy to support you? Lena's voice sounded in Dagu's ear. After hesitating for a moment, Dagu finally said to Lena, "Not for now. I don't think he is an evil alien." Chapter 1422. Hello, we've been chatting for so long, but I still don't know your name? Dagu asked after hanging up the communication with Lena. My name is Gohan, and I'm an immortal sword grade swordsman of a human swordsman committee. Gohan generously introduced himself. Swordsman committee? Immortal sword grade swordsman? A few question marks appeared on Dagu's head. This was a name he had never heard before. Mr. Gohan, if you really have no malice towards us humans, then can you please let these poor waiters out? I think they must be scared and anxious. Dagu said nervously. If this Gohan refused or hesitated, then it meant that this guy was not as harmless to humans as he said he was. He was just deceiving himself. Dagu was a little nervous. Dagu was a little hesitant. I don't care about that, but my sword ladies are not full yet. You have to ensure that they have enough delicious food. Gohan said with a smile. That's easy. I'll get someone to send food in immediately. Dagu said quickly, and Gohan nodded. The sword chi barrier that sealed the door was immediately opened. Dagu immediately called for the waiters to run for their lives. In the blink of an eye, all the waiters in the restaurant had fled without a trace. Lena, immediately go to the nearby XX shop and buy a lot of food and dishes. Hurry up, Dagu said to Lena through the communication device. Although Lena did not know what Dagu was selling, she still carried out his order. Soon, she brought the police and personally sent a lot of food in. Gohan's sword ladies cheered and grabbed all the food in their hands and began to eat. These sword ladies, their appetite is really good. Seeing the shortest little lowly eat enough food for 10 people in one go, Dagu couldn't even speak fluently. It's okay, you'll get used to it. Gohan smiled. In that case, Mr. Gohan, in order to not cause unnecessary panic, can you please stay at our TPC headquarters for the time being? I guarantee that we will give you the best treatment. Dagu requested again. At the same time, he became even more nervous. When this was said, everyone knew in their hearts that in name, they were guests, but in fact, they were monitoring them. In the face of such a request, even some aliens who did not have any bad intentions would inevitably be angry. However, Dagu had no choice but to say this. After all, the strength of these people seemed to be extremely terrifying. If they were to really wander around the city, who knew whether or not they would cause huge casualties? As such, Dagu was currently quite nervous. If anything went wrong, the good atmosphere from before would come to an end and be replaced by a huge battle. Sure, what Dagu didn't expect was that the other party would agree so readily. That's understandable. Besides, we don't have any money on us. It would be best if you could take care of us and entertain us. Seeing the puzzled expression on Dagu's face, Gohan explained faintly. However, he quickly added, it doesn't matter if I wander around or not, but my sword ladies may want to explore this world. So, when the time comes, I hope that you can send some people to accompany them. Okay, I will accompany you personally. Dagu nodded repeatedly. Just like that, the alien invasion that made everyone nervous came to an end. Those aliens who suddenly appeared were invited to the TPC headquarters to take care of them. They were treated with delicious food every day. Moreover, hundreds of TPC people accompanied the sword ladies to play at all times. Apart from being a little restricted, it could be regarded as a pleasant game. As a result, this game lasted for a week. Many sword ladies were quite happy and forgot about home. This is Tokyo Tower, the symbol of Tokyo. It used to be one of the tallest towers in the world, but now the first place has been taken by you Chinese. Dagu introduced to Gahan on the Tokyo Tower. After a week of getting along, most of the TPC people, including Dagu, already knew that Gahan and the others were indeed not malicious aliens. In other words, they were not aliens at all. They were completely human. The only thing that made the Japanese a little unhappy was that these people seemed to be Chinese. If that was the case, then they should have gone to China. Why did they come to Japan? Of course, these were all small problems. According to Gahan and Dagu's discussion, today was the last day that Gahan and the others would stay in this world. Tomorrow, they would leave this world and re-enter the dimensional space to find their way home. Mr. Gahan, according to what you said, isn't it very likely that you won't be able to find the world that belongs to you for thousands of years? Dagu was the indigenous person who communicated with Gahan the most. He also had a general understanding of what happened in Gahan's world. Although he did not believe in Yuan Ko, deep in his heart, Dagu felt that what Gahan said was true. This made Dagu extremely conflicted, because if what Gahan said was true, then didn't it mean that he existed in the 2D world in human imagination? Don't worry about it. Guhan sensed Gu's displeasure and smiled. You guys exist in the 2D world, and I might also exist in the 2D world. The world outside the 2D world might also be a product of another dimension, such as the fourth dimension. So it's fine as long as we're alive. Guhan's words caused Dagu to feel terrified. Just as the day was about to end, the whole ground suddenly began to tremble. At the same time, a roar resounded throughout Tokyo. A monster appeared on the streets of Tokyo. No matter how you looked at it, a monster appearing in Tokyo was a matter of course. Then, the residents of Tokyo began to retreat to the subway and the bomb shelters. Seeing their calm and indifferent expressions, it was no wonder that they were residents who lived under the threat of monsters all day long. They were already used to it. Not good. It's the space dinosaur Hephagogyton. I'm going to pilot the Victory Swallow to defeat it. When Dagu saw the monster appear, he immediately got excited and prepared to return to the TPC headquarters to fight. Don't go. There's no point in going. Guhan grabbed hold of Dagu. The immense strength that came from Guhan's body made it so that Dagu couldn't even struggle. Why are you stopping me? Are you in cahoots with this monster? Dagu said angrily. No, I just want to say that you guys have piloted that swallow to defeat dozens of monsters, right? When do you think your swallow's weapons have ever caused any real damage to the monsters? In fact, your swallow is just showing off a little, creating some sparks to show off its existence. In the end, if you want to defeat the monsters, you still need to rely on your transformation. That's why I'm asking you to wait. Piloting the swallow is useless. Guhan's words pierced Dagu's heart. Dagu's mouth opened and closed for a long time, but he couldn't say a single word. What could he say? Piloting the flying swallow to battle was more of a habit, and he himself clearly understood that the flying swallow had no use at all. At this time, Gahan let go of Dagu's hand and smiled. Actually, it doesn't matter if the swallow appears or not. I think you should just transform into Ultraman and fight. Anyway, the people around you have all escaped. You don't have to hide it from anyone. No, Dagu refused decisively. Now is not the time for me to transform. Why? Gahan asked curiously. Dagu was stunned again. He only knew that now was not the time for him to transform, but he did not know why it was not the time for him to transform. It was all instinct. By the way, these monsters actually appeared in Japan. Then why did you use foreign names to name them in English? Wouldn't it be better to just use your Japanese language to name them? Things like Jidentaro, Padentaro, and so on. This is more in line with your Japanese customs. Gahan said again. Dagu was still speechless. Dagu did not appear even after a long time. Naturally, the other TPC members would not wait for Dagu. So, they took 3 swallow and set out. The result was just as Gahan said. The swallow only released some sparks. Other than making the monster more irritated, it basically did nothing else. I'm curious. If you guys are so rich, why did you only get 3 swallow? If you guys had 300 or 1,000 swallow, you might be able to cause some damage to the monster. Gahan said again. Dagu was still speechless. He did not know why this happened. It seemed like TPC had never thought of building more planes. After a fierce battle, 2 of TPC's 3 Swallow were destroyed. Of course, the pilot inside had successfully parachuted out. At this time, Dagu's heart skipped a beat. He sensed that now was the time for him to transform. So Dagu immediately jumped down from Tokyo Tower and shouted Digga in the air. Then he transformed into Ultraman Digga and pounced on the huge monster. This is a two-dimensional world, after all. There are all kinds of bugs and illogicalities that appear to force the plot forward. This feeling is just too uncomfortable. Gohan said with a pained expression as he watched Digga's figure fight in the distance. Let's go. Let's see how the Ultraman of this world fights. Gohan said to his sword maidens. He then cut through the void and appeared directly above the battlefield in the next second. He was able to enjoy this not-so-exciting battle up close. This battle was indeed not exciting, because this time, the strength of the monster was unexpectedly strong. Ultraman Tiga and the monster fought for a minute and was at a complete disadvantage. When the small lamp on his chest began to beep, Ultraman Tiga began to emit light, but his light could not even penetrate the monster's skin. In the end, he was directly kicked out by the monster. I can't beat it. I'm going to die. Such a touching battle had completely moved the innocent and kind children. They immediately performed the classic action of Ultraman Tiga. Rays of light burst out from their bodies and were sent into Ultraman Tiga's body. Ultraman Tiga was instantly resurrected and became even more powerful. Just as he was about to use his newfound power to end the monster's life, Ultraman Tiga's body suddenly exploded with power. Just as he was about to use his newfound power to end the monster's life. Oh, I'm sorry. I saw that you've already lost, so I helped you get rid of it. But before Ultraman Tiga could use his ultimate move, he saw the monster's head fall to his feet. This incomparably powerful monster had actually been beheaded by Gohan. This speed was a little too fast, wasn't it? Chapter 1423. Although the battle is won and the monster is dead, what is this feeling of loss in my heart? Dagu had turned into Ultraman Tiga's side in his heart. He looked at Gohan, who was floating above his head, and the sword in Gohan's hand that was stained with green blood. So his ability is the sword. Dagu muttered, and Ultraman Tiga's body began to rapidly shrink, finally returning to his human form. At the same time, Gohan flew down from the sky and landed beside Dagu. Mr. Gohan, are you a swordsman from the legends of Huaxia? One of those sword masters from wuxia novels? After looking at Gohan, Dagu asked curiously, have you ever seen a swordsman from a wuxia novel who can kill such a huge monster with one sword? Gohan rolled his eyes at Dagu. I am not a swordsman from a wuxia novel. I am a sword wielder, an immortal sword wielder. I understand. So you are a sword immortal from the legends of Huaxia, Dagu said with some understanding. However, this could be considered as a half-correct answer, so Gohan did not refute anything. Okay, it's okay. You can be free now. Gohan threw the longsword in his hand, and the longsword quickly transformed into a bright and beautiful young girl in the air. Dagu, who had seen the sword turn into a girl, was so shocked that he could not close his mouth. His finger pointed at the starting point, and he could not even speak. Okay, there is no need to be so surprised. It seems that the first person to personify a sword was you Fusang people. You should be used to this. Gohan patted Dagu's shoulder and said lightly, moreover, I feel that such a small guy like you turning into such a huge Ultraman is much more shocking than my sword lady. Dagu expressed that he had nothing to say. Soon, a large number of people rushed out of the shelter and began to cheer Ultraman Tiga's name on the streets, thanking Tiga for saving them once again. This caused Dagu to feel a headache. Although he had turned into light, he had not done anything. The one who had truly saved Fusang was the man in front of him. I'm sorry. I'll tell everyone as soon as I return to the TPC headquarters. The one who really saved everyone wasn't Ultraman Tiga, but you, Gohan. Dagu lowered his head in embarrassment. There's no need for that. I won't be able to stay in your world for much longer. I'm not interested in this kind of reputation. Gahan said lightly. This world was destined to be a springboard for Gahan. Gahan didn't care about anything else. Dagu smiled and chatted with Gahan for a while. The other sword maidens also flew down from the sky. The TPC plane also landed beside Dagu. Unlike the ordinary citizens, these TPC staff had watched the entire battle through the surveillance video. They clearly knew that the one who truly defeated the terrifying monster was not Ultraman Tiga, but the seemingly ordinary alien in front of them. This human merely slashed the air with his sword, and the monster that even Ultraman Tiga was beaten half to death was directly beheaded by him. As a result, Gohan's defense level was raised to the highest level. All the TPC members stared at Gahan with extreme vigilance, deeply afraid that Gahan would suddenly start a massacre in Tokyo. Forget it. It seems that I should go. Seeing this scene, Gahan felt that it was time for him to leave. He decisively opened a nearby dimensional space. Just as he was about to leave this dimensional world, the communicator in Dagu's hand suddenly rang with an urgent alarm. This is bad, Team Leader Dagu. Lena said anxiously to Dagu through the communicator. We just received an emergency SOS from the TPC China branch. They said that 12 monsters have appeared in 12 cities in China at the same time. Right now, the TPC China branch can't handle it at all. So, they're urgently asking for help from all the TPC members in the surrounding area. They want us to go and provide support as soon as possible. Yes, I understand. I'll go right away. Dagu immediately replied. He then showed an apologetic smile to Gahan. I'm sorry, Brother Gahan. It seems I don't have time to send you off. I have to rush to China now. Strange. Can China also be attacked by monsters? Gohan's expression also changed. After all, China was Gohan's home country. Even in this two-dimensional world, Gohan did not want to see his home country suffer. To be honest, this is indeed very strange. It is indeed my first time going to China to provide support. Before this, the monsters were only interested in Japan. At most, they would go to a few small islands in the Pacific Ocean. They have never been to China. I heard that China even joked on the internet that these monsters are all anti-Japanese heroes. But today, I don't know what happened. These monsters suddenly appeared in China. Well, let's not talk about this anymore. I have to get on the Victory Swallow and rush to China immediately. Dagu said, I'll go with you. Take me with you. Gohan pressed onto Dagu's shoulder and said, I'm afraid. Dagu hesitated. Don't forget, no matter which world I am in, I will always be a Chinese. If China is in trouble, I will definitely go and save it. Gohan said firmly. Dagu nodded and said, Brother Gahan, I understand how you feel. I'm also willing to take you there alone. But behind you. Speaking of this, Dagu could not help but look at the 10 sword maidens behind Gahan. He said with some difficulty, but our Victory Swallow can only accommodate 3 people at most. You have so many girlfriends. I'm afraid our Victory Swallow can't accommodate them all. Oh, that's easy. Gahan waved his hand. Gohan's sword maidens turned into long swords at the same time and flew into the scabbard on Gohan's body. Dagu was so scared that his eyes almost popped out. It seemed that not only Miss Chi-Dian, but all of Gohan's girlfriends could actually turn into long swords. This was really terrifying. In any case, Gahan entered the Victory Swallow together with Dagu. After 20 minutes of flight, they finally successfully entered the border of China. However, at this time, 2 elegant-looking, swan-like planes suddenly appeared in front of the Victory Swallow. These 2 planes sandwiched the Victory Swallow from the front and the back. At the same time, the Victory Swallow began to descend and seemed to be ready to land. What's going on? We haven't arrived in China yet. Why are we landing? Gohan asked with a frown. No, because in front of us is China's airspace. Due to historical reasons, China will never allow our Japanese planes to enter China's airspace. So now we must land at China's Diaoyu Island Airport first. Then, at the Diaoyu Island Airport, we will change to the Victory Dragon plane of China's TPC division. Dagu explained. Changing planes will take at least 20 minutes. This is really too troublesome. But you're right. We can't let Japanese planes fly into our Huaxia's airspace. Guhan nodded, but at the same time, he frowned even more. He looked at the two Chinese planes in front of him and said, "Is this China's Victory Dragon plane?" "Yes, that is the Victory Dragon plane." Dagu nodded. "Then hold on to my waist. Let's go," Guhan suddenly said in Dagu's ear. Before Dagu could react to what happened, he felt that he was pulled into an empty whirl by Guhan. However, Dagu did not stay in this empty whirl for long. In the next second, he left the world. When Dagu returned to reality, he was no longer on the Victory Swallow. Instead, he appeared in a plane with a completely different interior decoration. "Who are you?" The original pilot asked nervously in Chinese. The Victory Swallow, which had lost its pilot, began to descend rapidly and finally fell directly into the sea. A plane worth hundreds of millions of dollars was ruined just like that. "We are the members sent by the TPC headquarters to China as support. But this person next to me," Dagu took out almost all of his IDs to convince the pilot that he was indeed a TPC member in the Victory Swallow. And Guhan was an alien who was enthusiastic about helping the Earth. It was Guhan who used his magical ability to bring him into the cockpit of the Victory Dragon plane. The Chinese pilot could only seek confirmation from the TPC headquarters in panic. After getting permission from the TPC headquarters to take the two people directly to the city ravaged by the monsters, the pilot helplessly led the two people to the city attacked by the monsters at full speed. This time, Wuhan City, a major city in China, was attacked by the monsters. Moreover, it was the first time that 10 monsters appeared at the same time. It was said that half of Wuhan City had been destroyed, and the total number of casualties had exceeded 300,000. The whole city was in a state of chaos. Finally, after another half an hour of flight, the Victory Dragon plane finally arrived in the sky above Wuhan City. Guhan patted the shoulder of the frightened Chinese pilot and apologized. Then, he left the Victory Dragon plane through the void with Dagu again. When they reappeared, they were already on top of a high-rise building in Wuhan City. It was the Baltan of the universe. He actually appeared again. At this time, there happened to be a monster in front of Guhan. It was crazily destroying the core area of the CBD of Wuhan City. Countless people were screaming and running for their lives around it. "Okay, there is no one else here. Let me transform into Ultraman Tiga and destroy this Baltan." Dagu took out his divine light stick. When he was about to transform, the angry Guhan had already rushed out. As a result, when Ultraman Tiga appeared, the body of the Baltan had already been minced into pieces by Guhan's sword energy. Chapter 1424 F***CK. Looking at this scene, even the righteous Ultraman Tiga couldn't help but curse. "You can't play it like this? Okay. Alright, I'll go and deal with the other monsters." Ultraman Tiga clenched his fist and said. He rushed toward the nearby monster that was destroying Wuhan City. But Ultraman Tiga was one step too late. When he arrived at the battlefield with quick steps, the new monster's head had already been beheaded by Guhan. Ultraman Tiga's face was almost red, and the following story was a complete copy of all the battles. Every time Ultraman Tiga rushed to the battlefield, the monster had already been killed by Guhan. Not only did Ultraman Tiga not kill a single monster, but because he was running at a high speed, he accidentally fell and smashed a building. Nobody knew if there were any unlucky people in the building who could not leave in time. He did not die in the hands of the monster, but in the hands of Ultraman. But this was also a very common thing. In the past, when fighting in Japan, Ultraman Tiga often accidentally killed some unlucky humans. While this was all understandable, there was nothing strange about it. However, the people of China were not as gullible as the people of Japan. They felt that all the credit belonged to Ultraman. They could clearly see that there seemed to be a human in the air, and some people even took a high magnification professional camera and filmed it in the air. Then, they successfully saw that it was a human waving a long sword in his hand and fighting with a monster. "It's a sword immortal. It's our Chinese sword immortal, a god." Seeing this scene, the people of China suddenly screamed excitedly. and these precious video files quickly began to spread on the internet, and finally spread all over the internet of China. I say, Brother Guhan, you're making me lose face by doing this. You're making me eat your dust. You should at least leave a monster for me. That night, in a small roadside restaurant, no less than 10 beautiful girls sat at 2 tables and ate heartily, surrounded by men with perverted faces. Such a high-quality beauty appearing at the same time in such an unfashionable roadside restaurant. This kind of scene was really too rare, and the nearby men couldn't help but run over to watch the fun. And no one noticed that on the other side of the small restaurant, there were 2 men sitting together drinking wine and chatting. These 2 men were naturally Gahan and Dagu. With the participation of the perverted Gahan, the battle during the day quickly ended. All the monsters died under Gahan's sword, and Ultraman Tiga did nothing but run the whole time. This made Dagu feel very annoyed. Although Dagu was not a narrow-minded guy, he could not help but feel his stomach ache when he thought of what happened during the day. Isn't it a good thing to kill all the monsters as soon as possible? You must know that every additional second, a life may be sacrificed in the hands of the monsters, so I must strive for every second, said Gahan. Hearing Gahan's words, Dagu's face suddenly turned red, and then he nodded with some shame and said, Brother Gahan, you're right. I really shouldn't complain to you about this. After all, life is more important. Come, let's say that you disregarded everything and ran over to save our China today. I, Gahan, toast you with this cup of wine. You could be considered a friend of mine, Gahan. Gahan raised the wine cup in his hand to Dagu, and Dagu quickly responded. The 2 of them drank a cup of wine, and the previous troubles were almost resolved with this cup of wine. At this time, the television in the small restaurant began to broadcast today's latest news. Although most of Wuhan City was destroyed, the Wuhan TV station fortunately survived, and the Wuhan TV station actually resumed broadcasting the program immediately. Of course, the cable TV was basically destroyed, but some places in the city still had the wireless network. Therefore, Gahan and Dagu could still watch all kinds of news on the internet through the small restaurant's online television. Dear viewers, this is a video taken by our netizens in Wuhan City at the risk of their lives. Through the video, we can clearly see that the person who is fighting the monsters is a human with a long sword. Although we can't see his appearance clearly, the long sword in his hand is completely the long sword of our China, so we can basically be sure that this is our China's hero. According to the discussion of the netizens on the online forum, everyone agrees that this hero who suddenly appeared is very likely to be our China's legendary sword immortal, a god. He couldn't bear to see China suffer, so he came out of the mountain forest where he lived in seclusion and killed these evil monsters. He is our China's superhero. The television was playing a video of Gahan's battle, but because it was shot on the ground, the video was very unclear and only a rough view of Gahan's body could be seen. Next, we'll invite the relevant experts to discuss this. The expert we've invited to the studio is Taoist Master Zhijing from the Wu-Tang sect of the Wu-Tang Mountain. Taoist Master Zhijing is the current leader of the Wu-Tang sect, and he is also an expert swordsman who has mastered the true essence of the Wu-Tang sect's martial arts. This is his first time coming to our studio as a guest, and also his first time participating in a television program. Let us welcome Taoist Master Zhijing. Hello everyone, I'm Zhijing. Taoist Master Zhijing bowed humbly. Then, Taoist Master Zhijing, may I ask if you think that the human holding the sword in the video is really from China? Is he really the sword immortal that the netizens are talking about? Yes, this must be the sword immortal, Taoist Master Zhijing said with certainty. Oh. How can you be so sure, Taoist Master Zhijing? The host asked immediately. It's very simple. Although we don't know the appearance of this sword immortal, from the way he holds the sword and the way he uses it, he has already used several sword techniques. He is using the sword techniques of the Wu-Tang sect of the Shang Qing Taoism. Therefore, I can say with certainty that this hero is not only a sword immortal, but also a sword immortal of our Wu-Tang sect. Really? The host said with an extremely surprised expression. But if this is a sword immortal from the Wu-Tang sect, Then do you recognize this sword immortal's identity? I can roughly guess. Taoist Master Zhijing said while stroking his beard. Our Wu-Tang sect has a 6 transformations immortal pill passed down by the Grand Supreme Lord. After taking one, you can become an immortal. Several generations of our patriarchs have become immortals after taking this immortal pill. I can see that the posture of this sword immortal is very similar to the 4th generation patriarch of our Wu-Tang sect, Taoist Master Chengxiu. He is an expert who became an immortal during the Jiaqing era of the Great Ming Dynasty. I see. The Wu-Tang sect is indeed a famous sect. The host exclaimed. That's right. Our Wu-Tang sect is of course a famous sect. We are truly capable. Unfortunately, we are not as good as those bald monks at lying. So, Taoist Master Zhijing sighed. Really, this Taoist Master Zhijing is simply a liar. He actually said that you are from their Wu-Tang sect, and even said that you are an immortal who became an immortal during the Jiaqing era of the Great Ming Dynasty. Isn't this clearly a lie? This is too abominable. I will let our TPC headquarters send your information to the TPC Huaxia branch and tell them the truth. Dagu said with dissatisfaction. He's not a complete liar. What Dagu did not expect was that Gohan's face actually revealed a somewhat nostalgic expression. Then he said faintly, Actually, I know this Taoist Master Zhijing. He is the same as me, a sword immortal level sword wielder. What? He also has such terrifying power like you, Brother Gohan. Dagu said in shock. That's not necessarily the case. I'm just talking about the one in our world. Gohan sighed. Taoist Master Zhijing was the only sword immortal level sword wielder of the Wu-Tang sect. He was the lucky one who survived after taking the 6 transformations elixir. He wielded the sword immortal level sword, made in true martial sword, and protected the Wu-Tang sect for more than 100 years. He was indeed a respectable sword wielder. However, what Gohan did not expect was that there was actually a Taoist Master Zhijing in this dimension. Moreover, his appearance was exactly the same as the Taoist Master Zhijing in his own world. This world was indeed a world separated from the real world. Then, Brother Gohan, your sword technique is also the same as what he said, Dagu asked tentatively. That's right. The 9 swords of mysterious heaven that I learned when I entered the sect is indeed a sword technique belonging to the Wu-Tang sect. In that case, I am indeed a disciple of the Wu-Tang sect. However, my master is Taishang Laojun. He is the same master as the ancestor of the Wu-Tang sect, Zhang Sanfeng. Looking at it this way, the Wu-Tang sect is also considered my martial nephew. Gohan said with a smile. Dagu expressed that he had nothing to say. Next, we will enter the audience's Q&A session. Those who can still go online can send us questions. Our Taoist Master Zhijing will reply to these questions as soon as possible. The host said. Then, all kinds of netizens' questions appeared on the screen. Liar. Big liar. This Taoist is really shameless. He only knows how to put gold on his own face. If he really is a sword immortal, I think it's more accurate to say that he is from the Shushan sect. After all, the Shushan sect specializes in swords. Liar, if you have the ability to show us evidence, then kill a monster for us to see. Who doesn't know how to brag? However, what made the host and Taoist Master Zhijing very embarrassed was that almost all the netizens' comments were insulting Taoist Master Zhijing, saying that Taoist Master Zhijing was lying. However, this was also very normal. Normal people would not believe Taoist Master Zhijing's words without evidence. However, as a result, Taoist Master Zhijing in the studio was very embarrassed. He began to fidget, and his whole body was covered in sweat. Zhu Xian Yu. Seeing this scene, Gohan's heart moved. He walked to Zhu Xian's side, patted Zhu Xian's shoulder, and whispered a few words in Zhu Xian's ear. No problem. Leave such an interesting thing to me. Zhu Xian smiled happily, then left the restaurant with the excuse of going to the toilet. He opened up the void in a dimly lit place and disappeared into the void. Brother Gohan, what did you ask Miss Zhu Xian to do? Seeing Gohan's actions, Dagu asked curiously. Watch TV. You'll know when you watch TV. Gohan smiled without saying a word. Instead, he pointed at the television in front of him. Dagu followed Gahan's finger and looked over. He was surprised to see that in front of the camera in the studio, a void door had appeared out of thin air. Chapter 1425. Master Zhijing, can you explain the doubts of these netizens? The host pointed at the string of doubts on the webpage. There's nothing to explain. Master Zhijing wiped the sweat off his forehead. I'm telling the truth. There's no need to explain at all. Then can you show us some evidence to prove your words? The host asked again. He really did not know whose side this host was on. I don't have any evidence, but I'm telling the truth. Master Zhijing insisted. Then, the webpage began to flood with comments, all of which were insulting Master Zhijing for talking nonsense. More and more beads of sweat appeared on Master Zhijing's forehead. Finally, he stood up from his chair and said, I don't think I should be here. I'll leave now. Hee. The host laughed dryly. He had no intention of stopping Master Zhijing at all. It was only then that Master Zhijing realized that he came here specifically to be a joke. Therefore, when Taoist Master Zhijing was about to leave the embarrassing recording studio, a hole suddenly appeared out of thin air in the middle of the recording studio under the gaze of all the audience and the host. It was the Void Gate. Ah, monster! The host was frightened on the spot. He immediately shrank under the table in front of the camera. At the same time, the sound of hurried and messy footsteps could be clearly heard coming from the entire studio through the radio equipment. It was obvious that all the staff in the studio were frightened and were preparing to escape in a panic. Who are you? Don't you dare behave atrociously in front of the Wu-Tang Clan. On the contrary, Master Zhijing was very calm. She drew a long sword from her back and said to the Void Gate, Not bad. Are you the disciple of my master's senior brother? A clear, loud, and pleasant female voice came from the Void Gate. It even sounded a little joking. Who are you? Are you a senior of the Wu-Tang Clan? Master Zhijing asked nervously. I'm not your senior. I'm just a sword. Just the celestial Master Zhijing was baffled by this answer. A sword really flew out of the Void Gate and hovered quietly in the studio. It really is a sword. The host saw that the other party didn't seem to have any malicious intentions, so he finally suppressed his fear and crawled back from under the table. The staff who had just fled also came back one after another. All right, let me confirm with you again. Are you really the sect leader of the Wudong Sword faction? The sword asked again. That's right, I'm the current Wudong sect leader. Celestial Master Zhijing said calmly. Do you have any proof? The sword asked again. Of course, I have the true Force Sword as proof. Heavenly Master Zhijing said, as she held the silvery white, long sword in her hand. She originally believed that the sword in Heavenly Master Zhijing's hand was the immortal sword, Sword Lady, true martial sword. I didn't find a wrong person. As soon as the long sword's voice fell, under the watchful eyes of everyone in the studio, as well as the countless viewers outside the camera, it was directly liberated and turned into a delicate and pretty girl. Human. He had become a human. Oh my God, the sword has turned into a person. The host let out a strange cry and retreated back under the table. I'm not a human. I'm a sword lady, Celestial Exterminating Sword said with dissatisfaction. He then took out a book from his bosom and threw it in front of Celestial Master Zhijing. My master said that the more you people from the Wu-Tang Clan practice, the more regressive you become. You've even completely forgotten the sword cultivation method left behind by your ancestors. You can only be mocked here for no reason. So he asked me to give you this 9 swords of mysterious heaven so that you can practice diligently according to this sword technique and strive to become immortals as soon as possible, so that my master won't have to take action again and waste his cultivation time. After saying that according to Gahan's script, the immortal extinguished sword returned to its sword form and opened the Void Gate at the same time. Just as it was about to return to Gahan's side, Celestial Master Zhijing suddenly shouted excitedly, May I ask, Great Ancestor, are you Grandmaster Gahan's immortal sword? Huh? Whether it was the immortal extinguished sword in the studio, or Gohan in front of the TV, they were instantly stunned when they heard that. Gohan never thought that in this world, someone who had never seen him before could actually call out his name. It was too strange. Immortal Extinguished Sword. Ask him what he wants to say. Gohan immediately ordered the Immortal Extinguished Sword through the sword mark. That's right, my master is Gohan. Do you have anything to say to him? The Immortal Extinguished Sword asked. It's like this. Our Grandmaster left behind a message when he ascended. He said that in the future, if someone claiming to be the Grandmaster of the Wudong sect comes to this world with an immortal sword, he must be invited to the true martial hall of the Wudong sect. The Grandmaster left something very important for him. Taoist Master Ji Jing said, Immortal Extinguished Sword, bring him to me. As soon as Gohan heard that, he immediately ordered the Immortal Extinguished Sword. The Immortal Extinguished Sword returned to its sword form. It grabbed Taoist Master Ji Jing in front of the studio and directly pulled him into the Void Gate. Taoist Master Ji Jing. Taoist Master Ji Jing. Where are you? When the Immortal Extinguished Sword and Taoist Master Ji Jing disappeared together, the host panicked and shouted in the studio. But no matter what, Taoist Master Ji Jing did not appear in the studio again. I'm sorry, Dagu. I have something to do, so I'll be leaving first. You stay here and rest well. At the same time, Gohan patted Dagu on the shoulder and disappeared into the void. Wow, is this the legendary flying in the sky? This is the method of the gods. This is definitely the method of the gods. In the void, Taoist Master Ji Jing shouted excitedly, My faith is not wrong. My 40 years of hard work is not wrong either. My path is right. I can definitely cultivate to become an immortal. Taoist Master Ji Jing's excitement did not last long before he was thrown out of the Void Gate by the Immortal Extinguished Sword. When he saw his surroundings clearly again, he found that he had returned to the familiar true martial hall of the Wudong Mountain. What did Senior Brother Sanfeng leave for me? A majestic voice came from the hall. Immediately, Taoist Master Ji Jing saw a majestic figure standing in front of him with his back facing him. Ji Jing, the 19th sect leader of the Wudong sect, greets Grandmaster. May Grandmaster enjoy immortal blessings and live as long as the heavens. Celestial Master Ji Jing immediately knelt behind Gohan and said, I'm not interested in these empty gifts. Hurry up and give me the thing that Senior Brother Sanfeng left for me. Gohan said impatiently. Yes, Grandmaster. Taoist Master Ji Jing immediately ran to the back of the statue of the great Emperor Jinwu. After a while, he took out a small red box from behind the statue and placed it in front of Gohan respectfully. Grandmaster, this is the relic that the elder ancestor wanted us to pass to you. Gohan took the small box and opened it to find that there was a memory card inside. This was not an ordinary memory card, but a memory card specially made for a personal terminal. This was a memory card that could not be manufactured with the current level of technology. Only the personal terminal in Gohan's world could read the information in this memory card. There was nothing much to say. Gohan immediately used the personal terminal to read the memory card. He was surprised to find that this memory card was really left for him by Zhang Sanfeng. Dear Junior Brother Gohan, although I didn't know when I had a new junior brother, since this is what Master asked me to do, there must be no mistake. Master asked me to pass on a few words to you, junior brother. Master said that you are now trapped in the dimensional world and must be very anxious to return to the world that belongs to you. However, there are so many dimensional worlds in the dimensional space. It is impossible for you to find your way home with your own strength. So Master asked me to remind you that the way home is not outside, but in your own hands. As long as the entire world is in your hands, you will be able to find your way home. Master is indeed powerful. He actually predicted that I would arrive in this world. So he asked Senior Brother Sanfeng to leave a foreshadowing to help me. After reading this, Gohan was once again impressed by Taishang Laojuan's terrifying strength. However, at the same time, Gohan also felt a little puzzled. What did his master mean by this? Controlling the entire world? Could it be that he wanted me to become the controller of this world? Gahan fell into deep thought. That, Grandmaster, since you are here, I have a small request. Can you teach me a little bit of the cultivation method, so that I can also become an immortal? Seeing that Gahan was deep in thought, Taoist Master Zhijing said humbly, What? Hearing Taoist Master Zhijing's words, Gahan lowered his head. His sharp gaze almost scared Taoist Master Zhijing to the point of fainting. You are wrong. I won't dare to do it again. I don't dare to trouble Grandmaster. I will definitely become an immortal through my own hard work. Taoist Master Zhijing was scared half to death. He thought that he had angered Gahan, so he immediately kowtowed and apologized. No, your suggestion is very good. Then I will fulfill your wish. Gahan revealed a smile that made Taoist Master Zhijing feel extremely terrified. The next day, Dagu did not wait for Gahan to return, so he took a plane back to Japan. Because of the amazing performance in the studio that night, the Wu-Tang faction instantly became the focus of attention of the people. From the next morning, countless people who watched the live broadcast ran to the foot of the Wu-Tang Mountain, wanting to join the sect and become a disciple. After all, there were still many people who wanted to become immortals in this day and age. As a result, the Wu-Tang faction opened their doors the next day and announced that they would promote the cultivation method left behind by the Grandmaster and lead the people of Huaxia to become immortals. As a result, the whole of Huaxia was in an uproar. Chapter 1426. On the third day after the opening of the Wu-Tang sect, the first batch of people who were accepted as disciples returned to their homes and began to tell their families about their amazing experiences in the sect. They all said that after they joined the Wu-Tang sect, they were taken to the Jinwu Hall by the Taoist priests of the sect. The huge statue in the Jinwu Hall actually moved and touched its head with its golden hand. It was said that this was the legendary enlightenment. After being enlightened by the Jinwu statue, everyone suddenly felt refreshed and energetic. All the discomfort they usually experienced also disappeared, and their minds became extremely clear, as if they had been reborn. They also obtained a book called Xiantian's Secret Record from the Taoist priests of the Wu-Tang sect, which talked about ways to cultivate spiritual ether. After following the instructions in the book, they actually felt a magical power in their bodies that could constantly flow through their bodies. This was the legendary spiritual ether. Most people did not believe such rumors, thinking that it was probably a trick or a scam created by the Wu-Tang sect to trick them into spending money. However, there were always some fools who believed such rumors. As such, they also flew to the Wu-Tang sect, hoping to join the sect and become its disciples. As a result, they also successfully experienced the magic that their predecessors had talked about. As word of mouth spread, more and more people decided to go to the Wu-Tang sect to be apprentices. When this trend reached its peak, 100 cancer patients went to Wu-Tang Mountain at the same time to be apprenticed to a master. These cancer patients were all in the late stages of severe cancer, and not all of them were dying. Among them, there was no lack of famous national treasure celebrities. Anyway, in order to survive, they want to try all the possibilities. Moreover, Wu-Tang sect was one of the major sects of Chinese Taoism, so they could at least give it a try. Then, the 100 cancer patients came down from the Wu-Tang Mountain the next day, and at the same time became the most loyal disciples of the Wu-Tang sect. Every day, they began to tell the people around them how magical the Wu-Tang sect was. They said that Jinwu Great Emperor was a real god, and that there were gods everywhere in the Wu-Tang sect. Because the cancer condition of the National Treasure Superstar was a fact that everyone in the Celestial Empire knew. When the National Treasure Superstar personally proved to everyone that his cancer had been cured, the whole Celestial Empire was boiling. At the very least, those terminally ill patients began to rush to Wu-Tang Mountain frantically, hoping to use the power of Wu-Tang Mountain to recover themselves. After they were demobilized and returned home, they once again influenced their neighbors to believe that they were telling the truth. The Wu-Tang clan really did have magic that could help one become an immortal. So every day, hundreds of thousands of people waited at the foot of the Wu-Tang Mountain, hoping to become a disciple of the Wu-Tang Mountain. Such a major change naturally caused some people to worry. The government was afraid that it would turn into another cult, so they began a special operation against the Wu-Tang sect. It was said that at that time, hundreds of helicopters landed on the Wu-Tang Mountain at the same time, and thousands of armed policemen entered the mountain and took away Taoist master Ji Jing and 2 or 3 women. After that, these armed policemen were stationed at the mountain for about a week. The whole country was watching the Wu-Tang sect, wanting to see if the Wu-Tang sect could survive this time. As a result, after the week was over, all the armed policemen withdrew from the mountain, and Taoist master Ji Jing and the others also returned to the mountain. The crisis of the Wu-Tang Mountain seemed to have been resolved just like that. In other words, the Wu-Tang sect ushered in the most magnificent development in hundreds of years. With the endorsement of the Celestial Empire, the people of the Celestial Empire finally completely believed in the authenticity of the Wu-Tang sect and the cultivation of immortals. The entire Wu-Tang sect instantly became the holy land of the Celestial Empire. The Wu-Tang sect began to flourish. In the end, it took 5 years for almost all the people of the Celestial Empire to become disciples of the Wu-Tang sect. What was even more terrifying was that almost everyone could fly in the sky and dig into the ground, possessing power beyond that of ordinary people. At this time, the power of the Celestial Empire had finally gathered. The power that had been accumulated for a long time began to liberate the surrounding Celestial Empire. Soon, the whole of Asia was in the hands of the Celestial Empire, followed closely by Europe. Even the powerful United States had succumbed to the power of the Celestial Empire. In the end, only the small Japan was still struggling. Of course, they were able to struggle not because of their ability, but because someone deliberately left them until the end. The last battle began. The Celestial Empire carried the power of the whole world and attacked Fu Sang like Mount Tai. Of course, Fu Sang could not be the opponent of the whole world. Soon, only Tokyo and Tiga Ultraman were left in the whole Fu Sang to resist the Celestial Empire. Gohan, I know you must be the one behind the scenes. I was wrong to believe you. I always thought you were a good person. I didn't expect you to be a beast who deceived the whole world. Are you going to destroy the whole world? Ultraman Tiga shouted loudly in the face of the siege of thousands of airplanes at the same time. Gohan, if you still remember me as a friend, then come out and tell me, why are you doing this? Sorry, I just want to go home. Following Ultraman Tiga's shout, Gohan's body slowly emerged from the air and looked at Ultraman Tiga apologetically. What do you mean? You just want to go home? Why do you want to harm the world? Ultraman Tiga said angrily. I didn't harm the world. Gohan shook his head in the air and said, you can see that with my efforts, the whole Earth has agreed. From now on, there will be no more racial and government barriers in the world, and there will be no more wars. All humans will live under the leadership of the same government, and everyone can live a happy life from now on. Am I not doing this for their own good? Ultraman Tiga froze for a moment, then shouted, you're talking nonsense. You launched a war against the whole world. Countless people died under your war, and you have the face to say that you are doing this for the sake of humanity? How many people have died in your hands? If you have to count, it's about 1,000 people. Gohan said lightly, originally, my magic was very successful, and it can automatically make all humans give up resistance, but I didn't expect that there would be some accidental injuries, such as accidentally falling from a building and dying. I can't control it. You. Ultraman Tiga's face stiffened. He seemed to not know what to say. Oh, that's right. In fact, the most casualties were during the attack on Japan. Originally, my plan was to only have 100 people, but because of your stubborn resistance, your light ray swept through several shelters, causing a total of more than 50,000 people to die in those shelters. I really didn't expect this number of casualties. I apologize. Gohan said apologetically. Ultraman Tiga knelt on the ground. He could not accept such an outcome. Why? Why did you do such a thing? I know you didn't do it for fame, nor for profit. Why did you do it? Ultraman Tiga changed back to the appearance of Dagu and asked Gohan. I said I did it to go home. Gohan sighed. The reason why Gohan did this was very simple it was indeed to go home. When he got the hint left by Taishang Laojun that he could find the way back by controlling a world, after thinking about it, Gahan thought that he actually had to become the king of controlling a world. Therefore, Gahan began to use the power of the Wu-Tang clan in his own hands. In this way, he finally controlled the entire Celestial Empire, and then through the Celestial Empire to control the entire world, becoming the king in the dark. Of course, it was not easy to achieve this process. The most important thing was how to control everyone 100% so that they would be loyal to him and become a part of the world he controlled. So, Gahan thought of his own consciousness fragment. He implanted a piece of his consciousness fragment into the human brain through the method of enlightenment. But it was different from when he saved I Ching. In order to save I Ching, Gahan simply transformed his own consciousness fragment into soul energy to strengthen I Ching's soul. This was a selfless way of giving himself, and it would not do any harm to I Ching. But this time, it was different. Gahan used his own consciousness fragment to control humans, so that humans could absorb his consciousness fragment to have superpowers. At the same time, Gahan could also use his own consciousness fragment to influence and control these humans. This was the reason why Gahan was able to quickly become the king of the entire world. In order to control billions of people in the world, Gahan had to split his consciousness fragment several times again. Now, Gahan's consciousness fragment had reached 8 billion, enough to control the entire world before he completely took control of the world. However, Gahan, who controlled the world in this way, had undoubtedly become a demon. He had actually become the big boss in various novels and games, the most evil power. Well, if this is the way you have to go home, then you can control me too. Dagu sighed. Thank you. Gahan nodded and injected the last piece of consciousness fragment into Dagu's brain. At this moment, the entire world's humans were under Gahan's control. Gahan closed his eyes and prepared for the moment when he would go home. However, as time passed, the entire world did not have the slightest change. What's going on? Could it be that I was wrong? Gahan opened his eyes with some irritation. Suddenly, a dimensional rift began to appear in the entire world, and on the other side of the dimensional rift, a brand new Earth was faintly visible. Great, I finally succeeded. I'm back. Gahan shouted and rushed back into the dimensional rift with his sword ladies. However, the moment he returned, Gahan withdrew all the consciousness fragments that he had implanted into the humans' bodies. It was considered that he had given the humans of this world their freedom. Could this be Gahan's way home? But why do I look exactly the same as those things that took my brothers away? My brothers went missing after entering such a rift. Dagu pondered as he looked at the shrinking dimensional rift in the sky. No, I can't let my brothers fall into that world. I have to rescue them. Dagu shouted softly and transformed back into Ultraman Tiga. He followed closely behind Gahan and rushed into the dimensional rift. Chapter 1427. I'm finally back. Gahan breathed in the familiar air with dimensional energy and said with satisfaction. Just by relying on the familiar air, Gahan could almost confirm that he had returned to the real world. The familiar modeled city ruins once again proved Gahan's guess that he had indeed returned to the real world. I just don't know what time it is in the current world. Has Swallow Capital City perished? Has the human world perished? Gahan looked at this world with a deep gaze. The moment he returned to the real world, he reactivated his personal terminal. However, Gahan's current location was in Southeast Asia. The humans there had long been completely wiped out. At the same time, it was also an area that human signals had never covered. It was impossible to receive quantum signals in this area, and it was also impossible to obtain the latest human news through the personal terminal. If Gahan wanted to obtain accurate information, he would have to travel through the void for at least a few hours. I'll hit. Just as Gahan was worrying about the current state of the world, a truck-like fist smashed toward the back of Gahan's head. Of course, Gahan would not be hit so easily. He nimbly turned around and dodged the fist. Then, he kicked the person who had suddenly sneaked up on him and sent him flying. Dagu, you're here too. When Gohan clearly saw the person who had attacked him, he unexpectedly discovered that it was actually the Ultraman Dagu from that world, Tiga. It seemed like Dagu had followed Gohan to this world through the dimensional rift. However, the first thing Dagu did after arriving here was actually to attack Gohan, acting as if they were absolutely irreconcilable enemies. "I'm going to kill you." Dagu suddenly let out a furious roar and drew out his divine light staff, preparing to transform into Ultraman Tiga. However, Gohan reacted quickly. With a light stab of the immortal Extinguished Sword, Dagu's divine light staff was sent flying. Without the divine light staff, Dagu could no longer transform into Ultraman Tiga. "Dagu, why do you want to kill me?" Dagu, who had lost Ultraman Tiga's power, was no longer a threat. Gohan pressed the tip of his sword against Dagu's throat and asked in a deep voice, "Yes, why do I want to kill you? But I want to kill you," Dagu said with a conflicted expression, but the murderous aura on his body did not diminish. It was obvious that he still wanted to kill Gohan. Could it be? The tip of Gohan's sword tore a hole in Dagu's shirt and found a small hole in Dagu's chest. This time, Gohan completely understood that Dagu had been infected by filth and had become a Yuan-ko. Entering this world through the dimensional rift would make one a Yuan-ko. Gohan had actually neglected such a simple setting. Dagu had followed him to this world, so it was inevitable that he would be corroded by the filth. Due to the influence of the filth, it was only natural that Dagu would attack him. "Sai, on account of the fact that we used to fight side by side, I will let you return in normal." Gohan sighed. He found that he had become more and more soft-hearted. In the past, he would have chopped off Dagu's head without hesitation. However, how could Gohan kill this former friend? In the end, he could only put Dagu into his dimensional pocket. He planned to send Dagu to the free cities in the future so that they could remove the filth from Dagu's body. At the same time, he would let Dagu reunite with his Ultraman brethren. However, Gohan still had doubts in his heart. Based on Dagu's appearance, it was almost inevitable that the filth would infect Yuan-ko. Moreover, he was born with a murderous intent toward humans. But why were Li Bai and Yuan-ko in the Seamless Corridor different? They had never had murderous intent toward Gohan. Why was that? Putting this problem aside for the time being, Gohan began to walk in the direction of Huaxia. Because Gohan had never been to Southeast Asia, he did not have the void coordinates of Southeast Asia. If he wanted to quickly return to Yuzhong City through the void, he would accidentally take the wrong path. When that happened, the gains would not make up for the losses. It was better to fly directly by land. Anyway, with Gohan's current speed, it would only take him about 10 hours to reach Yuzhong City from Southeast Asia. This is Southeast Asia. It is indeed as recorded in the books. This is Yuan-ko's fertile land. Looking down from the sky, Gohan could see Yuan-ko active on the ground almost every minute and second. Occasionally, there would be an ignorant Yuan-ko attacking Gohan from the sky. Of course, these Yuan-ko were all sent back to their own worlds by Gohan without exception. This was to be expected. Unlike Huaxia, Southeast Asia did not have two base cities guarding it. At the same time, there were also a large number of sword-bearers cleaning up Yuan-ko on the ground in Huaxia day after day. Therefore, there were relatively few Yuan-ko in Huaxia. But Southeast Asia was different. Humans did not have the extra power to sweep through this area. Therefore, as time passed, more and more Yuan-ko were gathered here, and they became everywhere. Gohan continued to fly forward. When he estimated that he had reached the border of Laos, this fierce battle attracted Gohan's attention. Gohan noticed that on one side of the battle was a human sword-bearer and an ordinary-looking girl. On the other side were 3 Inferno Hounds. An ancient sword-rank little guy. Not bad. He is fighting the 3 Inferno Hounds quite well. Gohan could not help but praise the opponent as he watched the battle from the sky. Although the Inferno Hound was only a tiger-rank Yuan-ko, its greatest ability was to spit a few fireballs from its mouth. However, they had the advantage in numbers. An ancient sword-rank sword-bearer being able to fight 3 Inferno Hounds at the same time was already a good result. Moreover, he had to take care of an ordinary person at the same time. However, he was only doing slightly better. The Inferno Hounds had the advantage in numbers. As time passed, the unlucky sword-bearer gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. If no one else came to his rescue, he and the ordinary person behind him would definitely die at the hands of the Inferno Hounds. "Big brother, are you okay?" A frightened little girl asked her brother, who was fighting in front of her. "It's okay, Jair. I will protect you even if I die," the boy said firmly. But when he said this, the poor little girl cried even harder. But what the boy said was true. He was already at the end of his rope. His personal shield had less than 20% energy left. At most, he could hold on for another 5 minutes. Then, he would die at the hands of the 3 Inferno Hounds. "Even if I die, I will protect my little sister. You bastards, take my splendor of life," the boy roared in his heart. He was ready to use the forbidden skill of the splendor sword in his hand, Splendor of Life. This was a skill that would take the enemy down with him. It consumed 80% of the energy of the Sword Maiden's personal shield to explode with a powerful area of effect attack, dealing damage equivalent to that of a treasured sword. Right now, the Inferno Hounds were also at the end of their rope. If they were hit by Splendor of Life, they would definitely die. However, the prerequisite for using Splendor of Life was that the personal shield had 80% of its energy. If the personal shield did not have enough energy, forcefully using Splendor would drain the sword-bearer's life force. Therefore, this was a skill that would take the enemy down with him. Even if the young man used it now, he would not be able to live for long. "Young man, you must cherish your life." Just as the young man was about to put his life on the line, a calm voice came from the sky. Then, the young man saw a flash of sword light, and the powerful Inferno Hounds turned into corpses. A dimensional vortex slowly appeared and took their corpses away. "Thank you, Senior, for saving me. I, Jiang Wu, am extremely grateful to you." The young man called Jiang Wu immediately realized that a high-grade sword-bearer had saved him. He quickly knelt on the ground and expressed his gratitude. "It's no problem. Sword-bearers should help each other. Moreover, you are my junior, so I should help you." Gohan slowly floated down from the sky as he spoke. "Thank you, Senior. Thank you, Senior. I, Jiang Wu, will never forget Senior's great kindness." Jiang Wu respectfully kowtowed to Gohan 3 times. "Good child." Gohan stretched out his hand, wanting to help the child up. However, when Gohan touched Jiang Wu's body, a powerful killing intent surged out from the depths of his heart. Gohan's hand grabbed onto Jiang Wu's hand, his nails digging into Jiang Wu's flesh, causing Jiang Wu to cry out in pain. He cried out, "Senior, you're so strong. It hurts. It hurts so much. What's wrong with me?" Gohan finally reacted and let go of Jiang Wu's arm. At the same time, he weakly took a few steps back and pressed his right hand on his chest. At that moment, Gohan could clearly sense that he had a huge killing intent towards Jiang Wu. He almost controlled himself to kill Jiang Wu. If it weren't for Jiang Wu's scream and Gohan's strong willpower, he would have really killed the poor child. But why? Why would Gohan have such a huge killing intent toward a poor child? Thinking of this, Gohan suddenly opened his shirt and looked at his chest. Then his pupils instantly shrank because at that moment, Gohan was horrified to find that there was a small hole in his chest. This small hole was the same as the one he saw on Dagu in Artoria's body. "I've actually been infected by filth," Gohan said with dull eyes. The saddest thing for a person was to suddenly discover that they had suddenly become the person they hated the most. Chapter 1428. Could it be that I was invaded by the filth when I passed through the dimensional rift, just like Dagu? Gohan tried his best to regain his rationality and put on his shirt. At the same time, he started to think hard about the current situation. First of all, there was no doubt that Gohan and Dagu were both invaded by the filth when they passed through the dimensional rift. In Dagu's world, Gohan had seen his own body many times. Gohan was 100% sure that there was no such small hole on his chest. Similarly, Dagu did not have such a small hole. Therefore, Indigo must have been invaded by the filth when they passed through the dimensional rift. What a joke. I actually became a Yuan Ko. Gahan gritted his teeth. He had always thought that only Yuan Ko would be infected by the filth when passing through the dimensional rift. He was originally a human of this world and would not be infected by the filth. However, Gahan had forgotten that before those humans, Yuan Ko, had come here, they had also been normal humans. As long as they were humans, they would become Yuan Ko after passing through the dimensional rift and be infected by the filth. Senior, what happened to you? Are you all right? Jiang Wu rubbed his arm, which was still in pain. At the same time, he brought his younger sister to the motionless Gahan and thanked him. Senior, this is my younger sister, Jiang Jia. The two of us thank Senior for saving us. I said that saving you was what I should do. Gohan smiled. Upon seeing Gohan smile, Jiang Wu and Jiang Jia heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. It was good that the senior was smiling. Otherwise, if he still had that murderous look, they would have been scared to death. Jiang Wu and Jiang Jia did not know how strong Gohan's desire to kill was. Waves of thoughts of killing these two humans were constantly washing through Gohan's brain. If Gohan had not been suffering from an even greater torture due to his split consciousness, Gohan might have already started a massacre. No wonder Yuan Ko became like this after being infected by the filth. It turns out that they're suffering from such a huge spiritual infection. Even I can barely resist it. Ordinary Yuan Ko would definitely not be able to resist it. Gohan said in his heart. He finally understood how Yuan Ko felt when he was infected by the filth. Only Gahan, who had been suffering from the pain of the split consciousness for a long time, could barely resist the filth's influence. Otherwise, even the primordial Yuan Ko would not be able to resist it. If they could resist it, they would not have become Yuan Ko. Where are you from? Why did you appear in this dangerous place? Gohan tried his best to calm down as he endured the filth's influence. We are all Londoners. My sister and I fled to Yuzhong City. We heard that although there are many Yuan Ko on this route in Southeast Asia, there are no U-level Yuan Ko, so it is very safe, the young man said with his head lowered. Tears began to flow uncontrollably from his eyes. In the end, although our team did not encounter any high-level Yuan Ko, there were too many low-level Yuan Ko in Southeast Asia. Our team could not resist them at all. When we finally advanced to Laos, we were finally defeated. I tried my best to protect my sister as we fled, and in a daze, we ended up here. If it weren't for my good attitude and the fact that we met Senior, my sister and I would have died. You are Londoners? Gohan's heart sank. Why would Londoners come all the way to Yuzhong City? Senior, you don't know? Jiang Wu was also shocked by Gohan's words. I was trapped in the seamless corridor, and I only left it recently. I think it has been a few decades. I'm not too sure, Gohan said hesitantly. In terms of physiological age, Gohan actually did not experience any physiological growth in the seamless corridor. However, in the dimensional space, Gohan had lived for nearly 7 years, so Gohan was almost 30 years old. He could be considered middle-aged. But because he was not sure of the time, Gohan could only try to make the time as vague as possible so that there would be room for explanation. Seamless Corridor? I've heard of that place. Isn't that the forbidden zone of the Martyr's Palace? Jiang Wu was shocked. The Seamless Corridor was a place that no one had ever escaped from before, but this sword wielder had actually escaped from it. Jiang Wu stared at the human in front of him. He stared at the human's face, and in the end, it gradually merged with the face in his memory. Then, he covered his mouth and shouted in surprise, Senior, 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 are you Sword Immortal Shihua's master, the Hongjun Sword Immortal Gahan, who has been missing for 20 years? So I've been missing for 20 years. Gohan let out a long sigh. He now finally knew how long he had been lost in the real world. It had been 20 years, but it all seemed like it had happened yesterday. How do you know me? I think you're not even 20 years old. Gohan looked at Jiang Wu and asked curiously. When Sword Immortal Shihua was the chairman of the Sword Union, she often told us stories about you. In addition, Longsure Jindy has said more than once that if you were still alive, you would probably be the strongest person in the world. And when you were a spirit sword level sword wielder, the video of you in our London station was often replayed on TV. Most importantly, your Her Majesty the Ocean Emperor and the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas has often helped us over the years, so your picture often appears on TV and the internet. Naturally, I recognized you, but you're a little different from the picture. You look much younger in the picture, and I was too panicked just now, so I didn't recognize you, senior. Jiang Wu stuck out his tongue. Huh. After all, 20 years have passed, of course I've aged. Gohan smiled. The current him was indeed different from before. This was the power of time. Very well. I've been trapped in the seamless corridor for 20 years. What has happened in this world in these 20 years? Tell me everything. Gohan suddenly said to Jiang Wu in an incomparably serious tone. Jiang Wu nodded and told Gohan everything that had happened in the world in the past 20 years. Actually, it was just like what Lu Qingping, I Ching had said. In the first 16 years after fleeting Maple left, the world could be said to be peaceful. Under Lu Shihua's leadership, the human world could be said to be thriving, and it was no worse than when Gohan left. However, as Lu Shihua's third term ended and he was about to start his fourth term, the Zhoutian Star Battle Formation in Shanhai Pass, which had been neglected for a long time, exploded. The 12 Zhu Wus swarmed out from the formation, and the 12 Desolate-class Yuankos gathered together had the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. The humans could not stop them at all, and they could only rely on the city base to defend themselves. However, even the powerful Yinjing city was breached after a year, and Sword Immortal Shihua, who was about to ascend to the throne, died in battle. As a result, the remaining humans began to flee to Yuzhong City. Of the 90 million people in Yinjing City, only 30 million managed to escape to Yuzhong City, while the remaining 60 million died on the road. It was a tragic scene. However, this was only the beginning of the tragedy. The humans originally thought that the 12 Zhu Wus would continue to attack Yuzhong City, but who would have thought that the 12 Zhu Wus would actually turn around and attack Salem City? Of course, Jerusalem was not the 12 Zhu Wus troops, and Jerusalem was also captured. Next, the 12 Zhu Wus continued to attack Berlin City. With the experience of Yinjing City and Salem City, Berlin City was simply left as an empty shell. Everyone fled collectively to London City, which was guarded by Longsure Jindy. As a result, after destroying Berlin City, the 12 Zhu Wus continued to attack London City. Humans found that they could no longer escape. They had to fight to the death with the 12 Zhu Wus, so they completely gave up all their dirty thoughts. Under the leadership of Qin Shi Huang, who is also one of the Zhu Wus, they concentrated all their high-end forces in London City. The two sides launched a defensive battle comparable to the one in Yinjing City. As a result, the 12 Zhu Wus displayed the 12 divine beings killing formation in London City and gathered the real body of Pangu. In half a day, they broke the dimensional wall of London City. Fortunately, Longsure Jindy and the others probably also found that London City could not be defended, so they began to arrange for the humans in London City to retreat in advance. With the help of the Four Seas Dragon Clan, a large number of humans were directly sent to Yuzhong City, and the high-level sword-bearers also successfully escaped to Yuzhong City after paying a lot of sacrifices. Then the 12 Zhu Wus began to sweep through city after city. Humans simply staked everything on one throw, giving up all the other base cities and concentrating in Yuzhong City. Even the Lunyan family had retreated to Yuzhong City. They decided to use Lunyan Ling's human Swordess to preserve the last spark of humanity at the cost of 300 million human lives. Jiang Wu and Longsure were a group of humans who had escaped from London City. They had experienced many difficulties and dangers along the way before escaping to Southeast Asia. As for why Jiang Wu and Longsure did not escape with the help of the Four Seas Dragon Clan, Jiang Wu was too embarrassed to say it, but Gohan could more or less guess the reason. After all, the relationship between the Four Seas Dragon Clan and humans had suddenly improved. After all, few humans were willing to trust the Four Seas Dragon Clan. Even Gahan himself did not trust the loyalty of the Four Seas Dragon Clan. Therefore, many humans probably wanted to escape to Yuzhong City by land. In the end, they were trapped in Southeast Asia, and only Jiang Wu and Longshu were left in the large group. Because Jiang Wu lost the quantum network not long after he escaped from London City, he did not know what happened after that. He only knew that it had been about 100 days since they left London City. According to the 12 Zuwu's speed, the 12 Zuwus had probably surrounded Yuzhong City again. Let's go now. Gahan picked up Jiang Wu and Longshu and flew into the sky. He had to rush to Yuzhong City immediately. He had to save humanity from the disaster while the last human fortress was still there. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.